Call this Coventry Town Council meeting to order on Tuesday, February 18th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. Councilmember Richard Williams is absent this evening and Lisa Thomas should be arriving about an hour late. Would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If there's anyone that would like to speak during audience citizens, I need you to state your name and address from the podium.
I'm Christine Pattee. I live at 98 Brookline Road. I want to speak briefly about two things. First, I want to thank the Town Council for setting up the Senior Housing Alternatives Study Committee. Matt O'Brien got us off on 2 weeks ago, and we had our first real meeting this morning. We have got a packed agenda for the next 6 months, and we're eager to get at it. We decided the most effective way to keep you all informed is we'll have our staff person send the minutes to the town manager, and then he'll just pass them out. The main thing I want to talk about is the Plan of Conservation and Development, which has just been completed by the Planning and Zoning Commission and being distributed widely, publicly, for public comment. Now, this is the second decade that I've been part of the committee, and I get to brag about it because I mostly have kibitzed on this Plan of Conservation and Development. First and foremost, we've had excellent staffing from Eric Trott. I always like to say, the reason I know it's such good staffing is I spent my career as a health staffer in the state health department, to legislatures, to policymakers. Now I get to be the policymaker, and I know what good staffing is, and he's been really good. But our Plan of Conservation and Development has been written for 2 decades running now by Bill Jabagi. It is very unusual for a plan of, we'll call it the POCD, for it to be written by the citizens. Most towns pay a consultant. Simsbury paid them $200,000 for what we're getting. Not for free, because Eric's time is involved, but for those of us who are volunteers. And Bill is a superb writer, and I wanted people to know that because his writing is so good that the Plan of Conservation and Development that's Coventry's plan is being used as a model in other rural towns. And I thought you all should know that because we are very proud of that Plan of Conservation and Development. Thank you.
Howard Hayburn, 80 Cassidy Hill Road, Coventry, Connecticut. I have recently spoke twice at town council meetings for town council member Matt O'Brien to be transparent. Transparency is supposedly one of the council's goals. Living up to the oath that every council member takes is required for a person to be on the council. If a council person can't abide by the oath that they swore to, under God, then it's mandatory that they resign. The oath are not just words. It is an oath sworn under God. It is the backbone of our legal system. It's also the foundation of a democracy. Prior to the election, Mr. O'Brien Jr. publicly posted during his rant at Creaser Park that all Democrats are godless people who compromise with the devil. If he continues to feel this way, then he lied when he took his swearing-in oath. He hasn't been transparent to us Coventry citizens, especially to those citizens who are Democrats. It is now the council's obligation to appoint a council person to address this matter and let us Coventry citizens know if he still believes this. I think that this reply should actually come from him. Does Mr. O'Brien still continue to foster this belief that all Democrats are godless people who compromise with the devil? I know that the Bryans both share the same game plan. The plan is to never apologize for anything. This is the same game plan that our president uses. Their plan is just to let an uneasy concern raised by a Coventry citizen to just wear itself out without giving an answer or an apology if they are wrong. This is just another form of censorship. In fact, it is a tactic similar to the one that Chairperson Julie Blanchard did to me a couple meetings ago to keep me from speaking at the audience of citizens. When public attention was brought out because of this, she tried to blame the press for misrepresenting her remarks. Her remarks were recorded, and the censorship it certainly was. Again, this is the same tactic our president uses: blame the press. For the sake of brevity, redundancy, and to make the council perform the job, I am requesting for the secretary to include in the record both my written speech and my formal request for the council to address this issue. It needs to be on their agenda. We Coventry citizens deserve transparency and honesty. My request, I, Howard A. Hayburn, a citizen of Coventry, with my residence located at 80 Castle Hill Road, Coventry, Connecticut, request that the town council appoints a council person to address my question and concern. I request that this will be on the next town council agenda. I prefer that town council member Matthew O'Brien Jr. himself give an oral reply at the next meeting for the purpose of transparency. The matter is, does town council member Matt O'Brien Jr. still believe and support his statement? I feel that he and the council have the obligation to address this concern, since it both applies to the swearing-in oath that he swore to and one of the town council's goal of transparency. I'd like to have this included into the record by the secretary. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Burdett, 154 Bear Swamp Road in Andover. Good evening, Town Council. I have 3 items I'd like to touch upon tonight. First, I would like to update the Town Council that other women have come forward, 2 major crimes, with allegations regarding Officer Michael Hicks. They are being investigated separately from my daughter's case. State police enforce state statutes. I reference Federal Law 18, United States Code, Section 2422, subsection B, the sexual grooming of minors. It's governed by 18 United States Code, Section 3299, which states, an indictment may be found at any time without limitation for any offense under Section 1201 involving a minor victim. I would also like to add that the FBI has been made aware of Officer Michael Hicks' actions. Secondly, I would like to thank you for addressing my request for a town policy regarding Coventry law enforcement and sexual relationships with youth. Thank you for being willing to research more into current policies and laws. Per statements made to the media, it appears the policy in Coventry or any applicable law, it truly isn't clear at this point. This issue extends nationwide. Thirdly, I must call attention to some truly disappointing situations that have occurred. I think you should all be aware of them. Chief Palmer did not inform State's Attorney Matthew Gdansky in 2017 of Michael Hicks' sexual harassment and other actions he was disciplined for. State's Attorney Gdansky did not have the information that he needed to make an informed decision regarding the Officer of the Year award. Therefore, he's pictured shaking the hand of an officer who was just disciplined for sexual harassment, describing Hicks and the other awardees as tireless workers who refuse to give up, intelligent, and officer is not satisfied with adequate work. Officer of the Year, 2017. However, Chief Palmer in the same time period had this to say about Officer Hicks. I find that this type of activity has a detrimental effect on your abilities to effectively perform your duties as a police officer and, moreover, as a supervisor. We can't have it both ways. Which officer is he? Is he the officer of the year? Or is he the officer engaging in activities which detrimentally affect his ability to perform and lead? Matthew Gdansky had the right to that information. Chief Palmer as well, over the last several months, chose to not inform the state police major crimes of Officer Michael Hicks' 2017 disciplines, despite these disciplines directly relating to his tendencies for inappropriate sexual behavior. The state police should have heard this from the Coventry Chief of Police and not from the newspapers months into the investigation. What I find most shocking of all, Chief Palmer chose not to inform the state police major crimes immediately of new allegations made to the Coventry Police Department regarding Officer Hicks. I should not have had to be the one to insist your police chief inform the state police weeks later after this complaint was taken. Who else have made complaints regarding Officer Hicks? Why are we playing hide the complaints? My daughter and I were told from the start to not talk to anyone about our situation, that there was no need to go to the state police. Chief Palmer had decided in less than 24 hours he wasn't putting 1 ounce of effort into criminally investigating further. I surely believe that if I didn't push our complaint, it would have gone to the same mysterious place the 2017 disciplines went, absolutely nowhere, and hidden from outside law enforcement agencies investigating any future allegations. That is my true belief. Coventry Administration and Council, I urge you to do exactly what your town attorney advised you and apply it to your police chief. Take your personal friendships and feelings toward Chief Palmer out of the scenario. Demand accountability for the issues I outlined and demand a valid reason for those actions. Coventry Police subscribe to the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics. This includes, I will cooperate with all legally authorized agencies and their representatives in the pursuit of justice. I do not feel this has happened. Coventry, if you, your loved ones, your son or your daughter had to come forward today due to a sexual assault or harassment situation in town, would you feel it would be handled well? Or would you feel like you would have to advocate to the extent I have to even get things in motion? Would you really want to spend months of your life advocating publicly for a thorough investigation? Chief Palmer, I sadly find that this type of activity has a detrimental effect on your abilities to effectively perform your duties as a supervisor. As a mother of one of the victims of Michael Hicks' predatory tactics, I do thank you for the positive things you have done for Coventry over the years. But at the same time, I ask Chief Palmer that he consider resigning. Times are changing, women are changing, and we won't tolerate sexual harassment, sexual abuse, or cover-ups, whether ill-intentioned or not, related to it anymore. Coventry, in my opinion, it's time for new progressive leadership of your police department. I urge anyone with information regarding Officer Michael Hicks to call the Troop K Barracks at 860-465-5400 and ask for Major Crimes Detective Stephen McManaway. Do not call the Coventry tip line regarding this issue. I do not feel confident it will get to the state police. I urge both former and active Coventry police officers to come forward with any information in this case as well, and to demand a strong leadership change that reflects their own hard work and dedication. And thank you for letting me speak tonight, and thank you for your concerns related to this issue. It is appreciated. And I'd like to have my notes submitted.
Good evening. Sandy Simon, 425 Geraldine Drive. As we're coming up on an election very shortly, I want to ensure that all of our registers of voters, whether Republican or Democrat, are certified. As of July 1st, 2015, any registrar was supposed to have completed a program within the first 2 years of their service. Subsequent to that, every year after, they were supposed to take an 8-hour recertification. Having a registrar go 5 years without being certified in the town of Coventry is concerning. Within the Senate bill, Substitute Bill 1051, whenever the Secretary of the State is the opinion that a registrar of voters has engaged in misconduct, willful and material neglect of duty, or incompetence in the conduct of such registrar's office, the Secretary may seek removal of such registrar. I'm asking that the Town Council report back to the community as to how many credits towards that certification the Republican registrar has, and if it's not close before our next election, that they're removed and a replacement is put in place. Thank you. And I'd like to give you the parts of the amendment that are towards that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak during audience to citizens this evening? Yep.
Hi, my name is Carol Chipkin. I'm at 454 Castillo Road. I just wanted to talk to you about my experience on the ZBA. And for 6 years, I served on the ZBA in town. And over those 6 years, there was one thing I noticed. And what I would like to do is to propose to you that maybe you reconsider the price of the cost that's charged to the applicant for the ZBA. And also, I'd like you to consider the zoning that's around the lakes for the people who live on these microscopic properties. In my 6 years, there were approximately 49 cases. Of those 49 cases that came before us, 26 of them were on the lake. Most of these were relatively small, maybe a shed to be put. Now, on most of these properties, there isn't even 25 feet between the house and the property line. And there was one case before us where the person was charged $588 to put a handicap ramp on their property. I think that perhaps we could relook the zoning laws on that. That's it.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak?
Good evening. Jason Blakesley, 27 Berry Avenue. It's B-E-R-R-Y, not B-A-R-R-Y. Madam Chair, I want you to understand how important the First Amendment is to our democracy and how dangerous it is to limit our First Amendment. The First Amendment protects the O'Briens from calling Bill Oros a traitor. It allows its citizens to criticize the O'Briens. It protects Governor Lamont and Councilwoman Lisa Thomas to call Republicans white nationalists. Most importantly, it allows victims like the Burdettes to speak out about such a difficult and emotional issue. Remember, there's no safety in silence. Apparently, there's no real men left in town willing to stand up for young girls and women. So I will speak louder for those cowards who lack backbones. To all the victims, I believe you and I support you. Your courage has inspired me to come forward about my experience. Following my arrest December 4th, 2014, I filed a complaint, which was filed as complaint number 74, December 14th. I stated how unprofessional some officers behaved, especially Sergeant Hicks, the lead investigator. Hicks and other officers denied me my basic civil rights while in custody. I was denied my one phone call and a blanket. Officer Hicks was on a power trip and yelled, "He doesn't expletive care if I'm cold and sick. As long as it's 62 degrees, I don't have to do expletive for you." This coming from a man who thinks 16 years old is good to go. Despite having video and audio available, the chief never investigated. I'm sure this was not the first time. I recently got an email from the town manager's office stating that the case was closed on November 21st, 2019, without any investigation taking place. This is 5 years after I made my complaint. When Detective Hicks lied to a judge about the amount of cannabis I had, my bond was $150,000. He reported that I had over 10 pounds and was selling. Matt Gdansky, ironically, took my case, because when it's a really big case like murderers and drug dealers, he takes the case. So lucky for me, Matt Gdansky had my case, the state's attorney who's investigating my kicks. Ironic, huh? Matt Gdansky determined that I had just over 1 pound of cannabis, and all charges were dropped except growing without a license. I was sentenced to 2 years of unsupervised probation. If it wasn't for issues with a $150,000 bond, I would not have spent 1 day in jail. Not 1 day. But when you need $10,000 to bond yourself out, it's very difficult. So the amount of the bond seemed personal to me. Seizing my cars seemed very personal. Seizing my wife's paycheck that was direct deposited 7 days after my arrest. Very personal. When Officer Samsel came to my house at 3:30 in the morning, 10 days later, to drop off a warrant, shining his flashlight through my windows, banging at my door, very personal. I was halfway out my back door to confront the intruder when I realized it was a cop. He is damn lucky I saw those lights, because he would have been in a world of hurt if I did not notice that. 3:30 in the morning, no cop should ever go to anyone's damn door, shining their lights looking through my house. I want to make that clear. That is very personal and unprofessional. So, you wonder why I think the bond was kind of high and personal. Well, recently a Willimantic man was just arrested for sexually assaulting a woman with special needs. His bond was $125,000. A Waterbury man was just arrested for sexually assaulting a Coventry woman. His bond was $150,000, same as mine. The most disgusting of them all is a Yukon student who's a Chinese national, was just arrested within the last year in Coventry, had 100 images of videos and child pornography. According to the press report, there's no children present, but they're at home. Please cover their ears, because it's going to get really gross. On one of the videos, it contained a 7 to 9-year-old performing oral sex. His bond was $25,000, $125,000 less than mine. Unfortunately, he fled to China and avoided prosecution. So, good for us, right? Nice low bond for child pornography. I think we can all agree someone growing cannabis is less of a threat than someone who sexually assaults women and possesses child pornography. Listen, I have an uncurable disease that qualified me to be a patient in the medical cannabis program in Connecticut. Unfortunately, our politicians didn't allow me to have grow rights, and I chose to do it on my own. That's the only difference. I was arrested for growing without a license. Nothing more to it. End of story. So, why I'm here? My goals are simple. I want to see change. I want to prevent the abuse of power against any of our residents. I request assistance from the state police to investigate past cases that involve my kicks. They should start with the Ancona case, then maybe my case, and especially look into it involving African Americans and other people of color. I want to remind you guys, there's an article in the New York Times, July 23rd, 2016, where the journalist went around to different towns with police officers, and one was Officer Mike Hicks. Mike Hicks said, "I definitely notice now that more people I pull over, if they're black, they right away turn on the lights and put their hands on the wheel," Sergeant Hicks says. "I like that. It makes me feel safe." Keep in mind, Coventry is 1% African American. 1%. Coventry police pull over maybe 100 to 120 people a month. He probably maybe pulled over 10 people a month. And yet he's talking about how he feels safe with black people? 1%. So I think we really need to have a civil rights talk about our Coventry Police Department. So, I just want to talk about misinformation and how Mike Hicks lies on warrants, he lies to judges, he lies to family, he lies to his daughters, teenagers, and he would lie to a judge to secure a warrant. It didn't matter who he hurt. It was all about trust. See, trust probably got him into the high schools and middle schools. Does anyone have on the record how many times he walked the halls of the high schools and middle schools? Was it ever? Some people thought he might be the next SRO. That sounds like the Chief Carilli blueprint. Just want to say, of course, my complaints were never investigated by the chief. I'm sure other people were. And the things I want to see change is next time someone's arrested and their vehicles are seized, perhaps we store them in a safe place. So when they pick their vehicles up after their case is over, they're in the same condition as when they were seized. That would be good. And I'll leave it for that for now. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Linda Blakesley, and I live at 27 Barry Avenue. And I'm here tonight, once again, to show my unwavering support for Jennifer Burdett and her courageous daughter who came forward to report the sexual harassment she suffered as a teenager by a man who's in a position of power, Sergeant Michael Hicks of the Coventry Police Department. My support extends to every woman in town, and once again, I encourage any male or female in town who has been victimized by anyone in a position of power to come forward. Please know that I will stand by your side, and unlike every other leader in this town, my support is visible and loud. I get that you cannot speak about the allegations regarding the inappropriate sexual messaging of Sergeant Michael Hicks to a high school-aged female while on duty. What you can do, and have not done, is speak loud and clear to support and encourage women in this town to come forward should they have experienced similar harassment or worse. Instead, you have chosen to remain silent on this issue. I'm here to tell you tonight there is no safety in silence. Shame on all of you for choosing to ignore this opportunity to declare to young women in this town that we care about them, we support them, and we believe them. For the record, I've contacted both the Republican and Democratic town committees through Facebook, asking them to post a message of support and encouragement to the women of Coventry, empowering them to come forward if they have been a victim. While the Republican town committee had already voluntarily asked for Mike Hicks's resignation from their committee, they have not since posted any message of support, nor did they bother to reply to my message. The Democratic Town Committee responded to me nearly 6 hours after they read my message and privately stated that they stand by the women of our community. Yet they failed to post anything publicly stating the same. Does fear for speaking against the police extend to even our political leadership in town? This wasn't the case several years ago when then Fire Chief Joseph Carilli was arrested because of similar accusations of sexual harassment with another Coventry youth. In fact, I wish to read an excerpt from the Town Council minutes on March 4th, 2013, which is scarily relevant today in 2020. Begin quote, "When a few courageous young women came forward and filed formal complaints of sexual misconduct, alleging former Fire Chief Joseph Carilli was harassing them in their workplace, I stated then, the most important thing we as a council and as a community could do was make it clear to those women and all in our town that they should feel we take their complaints very seriously and will act upon them. There is no safety in silence. Each of us has a moral obligation to speak up on behalf of those who are victimized and abused. I would expect that if another adult suspected that either my daughters was being harassed, bullied, or victimized in any way, that they would have the courage to alert me. If they didn't feel that I'd be able to act on their suspicions, then I would hope that they would bang on every door possible, from the school administrators to the police chief, until they found someone who could and was willing to take action. We cannot act to safeguard our children or any member of our community only on the basis of swirling gossip and rumors. The The only way we can stop abusers is to let victims know that Coventry is a safe place to come forward, and we will listen to you and act on their grievance. We must provide ongoing education in our community about who the people are that we adults can go to when we need to file complaints. We must teach our children how to identify who they can confide in when they suspect that other children are being victimized. This must be continuously taught in our homes and in our schools year after year as our children grow and develop. We should ask our children every year, who are the adults you can turn to when you can't or are unable to turn to me? Silence will not protect us. Only our purposeful actions can. End quote. These were the words of Lisa Thomas, councilwoman during the period in 2013. Now I ask, absent Lisa Thomas, and all of you for that matter, why has your support been non-existent or only in private? Why do you choose to remain silent on this? Do you fear being targeted by the police? Is it because of your political aspirations? Do you not believe the victim? Do you just not care or find this important? I urge all of you to consider if your daughter, sister, significant other, or friend were being targeted, would you stand by them or would you remain silent? Not me. I say again that I stand by all women of this town. Remember, there is no safety in silence. Silence cannot protect us. Only purposeful actions can. In conclusion, I leave you with this quote credited to Dante, the Italian poet. The hottest places in hell are reserved for those in times of great moral crisis remain their neutrality. Thank you. And I ask that my speech be added to the minutes, please.
Seeing no other audience members, I'll close that portion of our meeting. Next on our agenda is acceptance of our minutes from February 3rd. Do I have a motion? So moved. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, John. Any changes, corrections, or additions? Yes, sir.
I do have one on page 2. It's already been alluded to during audience of citizens, but I did note that, let's see, in the third paragraph down on page 2, after Linda Blakesley's name, the street address is Berry Ave. It's misspelled. It's B-E-R-R-Y. Further down on that page, under acceptance of minutes, the 1, 2, 3, 4th bullet. I believe at the very last word on that line there, I think it's Picpedia. I think there's an A in that acronym at the very end.
At the end.
So just add an A at the end, not change.
I think that's
the S.
correct, right, John? Just an A?
Okay.
Yep.
I have a question on page 3 towards the bottom, actually the last line. Is this attributed to me or to John, or I'm not sure? It says successful projects have been blended projects having a few smaller low-income units in the development. Did you say that, John? Because I didn't say that.
I think John said that.
I think John said it too. And
So you
then,
want me to add?
just
Or
that
else I'll
John
say-
Alcester was the one that made the comment, and then it said the need is present. I think that's all part of the same comment.
The need is present
Is
also.
that what?
Yes.
Yeah.
It goes on, it says also should have added, so it's a
Okay.
continuation, so
Okay.
it shows.
I had one more question on page 5. Under appointments, talking about the Eastern Region Tourism District, I had kind of asked questions about what the role of our representative would be and if that person could come back to the council and let us know what was going on and get some guidance from the council on issues that are going to affect the town. And that all got taken out of the comments. I'd like to put in something to that effect.
Under Sobel or Par?
Yes, the 62A under the Eastern Regional Tourism. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, the first one.
So just tack it on the end of that paragraph.
The discussion paragraph?
Yes.
What is that word?
I don't know.
On page 6, fourth line from the bottom, there's a word that's P-H-R-A-G-M-I-T-E-S, which I don't recognize. Phragmites, is that correct?
I think that's spelled correctly.
Spelled correctly, okay. What is it?
It's a invasive species, invasive aquatic plant.
Is it?
It's found on the edge of the lake.
Okay, never heard
It's
that.
those big tall things,
I'm sorry?
the big tall things.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Shaggy.
Shaggy. I wasn't sure about the spelling and didn't recognize the word.
It is a weird word.
That's all I have, yeah.
I have one on the first page.
Oh,
Item 3, second paragraph. Fourth line, you could add species after invasive. Battle against the invasive species.
Well, under Pledge of Allegiance, it's noted that all present stood to recite the pledge. That's not accurate.
All the council members. Maybe that's
Well,
what
as
she-
I said, no, unless you're referring to the council members.
I guess I don't look around the room, not everyone's.
I know, so I don't know that I ever even noticed this phrase in here. I was like,
Are you one not stand?
Yeah,
no.
they saw it on the tape.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think pledge is spelled wrong too.
Oh, in the, after, yeah, the bold underlined one, yeah.
Switch the D and the G.
Let's put all council.
All council
Yeah.
members.
That's fine.
And staff. If you really want. So there's no.
Everyone but one, right?
Let's just name the one person that did. I'm just kidding.
Almost everyone's there.
Nice job, Yvonne, and thank you.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, there's
All
lots
right,
going
all
on.
those in
Oh,
favor? Oh, do you
Page
have more?
7, sorry, just, it's a tiny, tiny one. Page 7 in the title of 6F3, just wanted to capitalize the G in grid. Microgrid. We had talked about adding the term cogeneration to that, not at this one point in time, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Not at this point in time we didn't, but we talked about adding that as a regular, whenever we regularly refer to this project,
Okay.
that we should probably call it the microgrid / cogeneration.
Start changing on the agenda.
Yeah, it's just a general note, right? It makes sense, right? I think I remember there was a reason to do it, so.
What will it be in the future? Just
Microgrid / cogeneration,
co-generation.
CO-generation
Yeah, okay. Anything else?
project or whatever. Still flipping. Yes. Page 9. In that second paragraph, it's the large paragraph up, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up from the bottom, towards the end of the line, it said, if there's a minimum sales price, I think it's price. Sales price would be an interesting thing to talk about. Let's see, now, further down that page, under 9B, I would like to note, I'd like to ask, there was some discussion, this is about when we were talking about the elections, or the primaries being held in the schools while school is in session, and there were safety concerns raised. It seems that there was a discussion, I recall a discussion about the fact that there was a detailed safety plan in place that was worked on by the Board of Ed, the superintendent, and the police department, and I didn't see that referenced in the minutes. I thought it was an important point to have in there.
So the Board of Ed is working with Sergeant for a plan of parking, but there's a detailed plan in place.
Why don't you just say parking and safety plan?
Okay.
Or safety and parking plan?
Yeah, I would probably, I mean, yeah, sure. Safety and parking plan.
At the end of that last sentence.
Let's see, it's
On page 9.
Last line.
Yeah, last line on page 9.
Yeah, I think, well, I don't want to mischaracterize, I think the superintendent was involved as well, as the,
And BOE and superintendent.
right, is that,
It's everybody's
Yeah.
part of it.
okay.
In that same paragraph, right, kind of in the middle, it says,
Cannot.
why can the
Yeah.
firehouse?
Yeah, bad grammar is in this comment. I don't remember if the
Just
bad
change
grammar
it.
was used or not.
Why
It might have
can't?
been. But I'm fine with making it readable, as you all well know. I'm out.
Got anything for the minutes, Lisa, that you think we missed?
There were a couple misspellings, but I'm sure you guys got this.
I think we did.
And I had the same concern as John about, because I remember there was someone in the audience who was able to speak to all the thought and planning that went into the day that the primary elections would be happening at the schools.
Okay, so everybody
So,
go.
okay, so I know I said I was out on these minutes here. I'm out. But I do have some, I don't know where else to raise these things. So I just want to make these comments now during minutes discussions. I noticed that we still have some missing statements, audience of citizen statements from the January 6th minutes. There are 3, Kathleen Breitenwischer, Carolyn Arabolis, and Emma Eaton made statements, and the minutes indicate that they're attached to the minutes, and I checked today, they are not. I do want to recognize that I think to my request last time or the meeting before, that it looks like they were added to the January 21st minutes. And then I did kind of a little inventory of these things during the whole time, and it looks like only Robin Gallagher's statement from the December 16th meeting, the minutes stated it was her comments were provided to the town manager for inclusion in the minutes, but they're not included. So that's my minutes comments.
Can you send that to me?
Yeah. Yep.
Because in some cases, they're actually on file in town clerk's office, they may not be online. To put them online, we have to republish the agenda. The online is not the official repository of minutes.
Unfortunately, it becomes a pretty relied on resource by the community to be able to get them online in 2020.
It's just not legally required.
I understand, so I'm glad to hear if they're in the official one. I want to know what
I
is
need
the
to
process
check.
that we could do to make them.
Just like we're doing tonight.
Yeah, well, then, yeah, whatever I need to do to get that ball rolling.
It's comments that were brought up but not part of the minutes. So
Should I scan them and put them in the minute?
It'd be easier if they were together, but if you can't do that, we'll have to.
Well, I could, as each person comes up instead of a
No,
paragraph.
they should be attached to the end.
At
Because
the end, okay.
the council, just the record, the council does not approve the attachments to the minutes because they didn't make those statements.
Correct.
So
Oh, I see.
there is a disconnect, just so people understand that someone can stand up here and say one thing and hand in something that's entirely different. And it's getting attached to the minutes. And you should also be aware that that's a policy that you should be careful of because of those issues, that someone can insert something in the minutes wasn't really what's said. But also be aware that you have no legal obligation to attach things to the minutes. Sometimes it's a matter of convenience for the clerk, but it also costs money because every page of those minutes is a linenized paper that has an expense to it. So at some point, we got to have a larger discussion about it, because historically now, we're burning up, and we have to pay for not only the linenized paper, but to have those scanned and recorded. We pay by the page. So long minutes cost the taxpayers a lot of money. So it's not just it's an issue of broad implications and not simple answers. So I'm just making sure you understand that if someone gives you a book to say, I want to attach this to the minutes, there's an expense to that. And that book may not be relevant to anything discussed. And you are not voting on that because you have not reviewed those. So
Right.
there is a distinction between attachments to the minutes and the minutes.
Mm-hmm. Right, but with all due respect to the cost associated, I think that the cost that the members of the community put into getting here, putting their comments together, and then getting up in front of all of us and online, and saying those things, and then requesting that they be added. I want to respect that.
And it's online, so you can, any questions, go look in video.
Thank you.
It has an emotional content that reading doesn't have.
Absolutely true.
Yes, Lisa.
Is there a way then to maybe at the start of the minutes or somewhere put some sort of, not disclaimer, but for lack of a better word, something about, if people want to hear the fuller statements, they can be found on file, they can be found in the video? Because I agree, people are taking time to come and sometimes
Could be
comment
at
on
the
it.
end of each minute, maybe. I don't know.
Say-
Maybe you could add it to the end of each minute statement.
Or maybe where it's audience of citizens and it has just the, if it's just going to be quick summaries of people who may have been making, they're always important comments, maybe right where it says audience of citizens, it could, there could be a note, for the full comments.
So this is a policy issue the council can talk about, but legally for the minutes, all you need is motions and votes. That's all you need for minutes.
I think we understand that, but we've also made a pledge of transparency to our constituents, and so the more information we can provide, the better, and so if we can find ways to make that happen, it seems like that would be important.
And I know I enjoy all the information that's contained in our minutes when I ever want to review something or look for something, so.
Maybe, I think they're pretty busy, but maybe steering should discuss this.
Okay.
Well, I have made some notes.
Says the finance guy. Sure, shuttle it over to steering.
As I said,
Sure.
there's cost implications to this. So maybe
Yeah.
finance-
Oh, maybe finance should have it too. Both do it.
Thank
There
you,
go.
John.
All right.
We'll send it right over to you after.
All those in
Okay.
favor of approving the minutes with the changes, excluding the attachments, please say aye.
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 All right, thank you.
John, if you can send that to me, I can do that.
I'm going to do better. I'm going to hand it to you.
Next is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve our consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you,
I'll
Lisa.
second, John.
Second. Thank you, Lisa. Anything we want removed from tonight's consent agenda? Lisa Conan?
I'd like the art skill minutes removed.
What numbers?
That's number 11B.
Thank you. Anybody else? All those in favor of approving our consent agenda with removing item 11B, please say aye.
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 Thank you. All right, reports. I don't have anything that I want to report on tonight. I don't think I'm jumping with two agendas. I picked one for my notes. Nope. Are there any council members? Yes, Matt.
I have two quick things. Peter DiPiolo, who's been very active in town, helping support the Patriots Day race, had been in touch with or tried to be in touch with the Veterans Memorial Commission Committee, looking for some additional assistance with other veterans issues, and found really that it's not really operating actively right now. And he had the thought, and I kind of agreed, we had a long conversation, I kind of agreed with him that it might be a good thing to change the charge slightly, to expand the charge to include, coordinating with veteran services organizations, veteran-related events and activities in town, as well as still continuing to review and assess all existing memorials. I have a little bit of language, but the thing is that there's nobody bringing all the different veteran groups together and helping coordinate any of the major events that are happening in town, like the Patriots Day race, like the Memorial Day parade. He also suggested the Wreaths in America, but I understand that, but they could help with coordination. And I thought that we should do more, perhaps, to help recognize and help benefit veterans in town, and maybe that would be another, a way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hoping that the council would consider maybe either changing that charge or considering maybe even forming a new commission to, to be.
Steering, exactly.
Yeah, I know, send it to steering, she's laughing.
Then let the finance people and send it up to steering.
But if that's what the chair decides.
I agree. I
Wow.
want steering to
Wow.
look at this.
We have a subcommittee.
Steering, you talk to them?
Wow.
I think it's worthwhile to look
Yeah.
into
Oh,
this.
absolutely.
Absolutely,
Wow.
and I appreciate that Peter DiPiola is willing to help or be involved.
And Jamie, too.
Yeah, awesome.
One more thing, John and I both attended the pension committee meeting at which they did determine that they were going to recommend the actuarial recommended amount for our budget
Great.
for this coming year. That was all they did, right? I was surprised that that's all they were going to do, but. So.
All right, well, thank you for sharing that. Any other council members have anything to share this evening? Lisa Conant?
Just a quick announcement that this coming Sunday will be the last winter farmers market of the year. From 11 to
50
1.
degrees, everybody should be there.
Absolutely. From 11 to 1 in the high school cafeteria.
Warmer in there.
All right. Finance Committee. Matt Senior.
So, we did hold our Finance Committee meeting on February 10th. I'll try to run through this pretty quickly. Finance Director Amanda Backhouse reported that tax collections through February 3rd, which was the last day property tax payments were on time, were 96.76%. Our general fund collections were at 86.83 as of January 31st, which is in line with prior years. Expenditures for the town and Board of Ed were in line with prior years, and there are no major issues or transfers needed as of this report. Amanda reported that Coventry and sewer use collections rates are both up in both funds. Amanda reported that the assessor completed the 2019 grand list, and it shows an increase of 4.6% due to the revaluation. Amanda also included a report on the impact of crumbling foundations on our grand list. We currently have a reduction in our grand list of $4.5 million due to crumbling foundation properties impacts. It was noted that 7 properties have been repaired and returned to full value, and that the $4.5 million is the current net figure. Amanda also reported that the Finance Department has applied for a PEGPETIA grant to replace our
Not pronouncing that one, huh?
video recording equipment for both the town and Board of Ed, and are hopeful we will receive some funding under that grant. She reported that the pension committee had opted not to rebalance the pension assets at the end of the last quarter to meet the 60% equity, 40% fixed assets, and left the equity and equity percentage slightly higher than the approved guidelines recommended, and they agreed to look at it again at the end of the current quarter. The pension committee also did not reach an agreement as of their last meeting on the recommended budget contribution for fiscal year 21, and there was a special meeting on February 12th to review that issue. John Assessor noted that he had included a recent presentation by a pension attorney who reviewed the state's pension plans. John noted it was very informative and shows a grim outlook on the state's plans. The committee discussed the Coventry budget. So the committee discussed the Coventry budget and the new contract agreements for recycling and hauling and disposal fees. We discussed the recent collapse in the market for recycling material and the change from receiving payment for recycling to having to pay to have it removed. The state's mandate to force towns to use a single stream recycling system, and the pending failure of some of the trash-to-energy facilities in the state. Amanda reported that the change in next year's hauling and disposal fees will add about $36,000 to our cost in 2020 to 2021. Amanda also projected the revenue based on current rates and updated numbers of units. Amanda reported that looking at the projected expenditure increases, including disposal, salaries, etc., we would be looking at over $200,000 of fund balance in order to cover the expected costs. Amanda noted that this would be equal to about $40 more per unit. The chair reported that he had reviewed the changes in the Coventry fund balance from year to year to see what impact the two $5 decreases in per unit charges in fiscal year 2017 and fiscal year 2019 had made. Even after both of the reductions were implemented, Coventry was still incurring surpluses each year. It is the dramatic loss of revenue, $25 per ton from the recycling, the dramatic increase in new costs to pay for recycling, $30.90 per ton, and the increase in hauling and disposal fees that have caused the dramatic changes. We discussed Amanda's projections, and the chair agreed that in light of all these changes, the town council will have to consider raising the fees in the coming year. The chair said he would like us to get information out to taxpayers so they can understand reasons why the circumstances have changed. Amanda noted she will include an additional explanation in this year's budget documents. We also received 2 reports from the Board of Education in response to our request to an end-of-year encumbrance report for fiscal year 2019. In the fiscal year 2019 audit, we learned that the board had let about $55,000 lapse back to the general fund from June 30, 2018 encumbrances, and Amanda had reported that the board was carrying a high balance of unspent encumbrances funds currently from fiscal year 2019. We received purchase order history report and the voucher supplement account summary from the board, and they showed that the board had encumbered $586,000 as of June 30th, 2019, and of that, about $297,000 was spent within 60 days of the end of the year. There's still about $45,000 of the remaining $289,000 that was encumbered is unspent to date. It was agreed that the information that was received from the board was difficult to understand and took a lot of work to follow. We also reviewed the town's fiscal year 2019 end of the year encumbrance report, and it was noted that this report was much easier to read and understand, and we asked Amanda to share her report with the board in the hopes they might emulate it. I recommend that anyone who wants more information review the attachments included on the fiscal committee agenda to get more information. But just to give you a visual, this is the town's end of the year encumbrance report, and this is what we received from the Board of Ed to try to follow. And it was in two different reports, and it was very cumbersome to go back and forth between the two and actually follow through other reporting to try to figure out what was going on. So, and that's my report.
Anybody have any questions of Matt's report?
A quick one. And I wasn't at the finance meeting. The $4.5 million reduction in the from the properties. How many properties approximately?
52, if I remember correctly. 64. Is it 64?
64 properties.
But 7 have returned? Yeah. So 57.
Are we at 60 now?
Somewhere. It probably keeps changing a little bit anyway. So.
There's 52 still open and 14 that either were fixed.
Oh, 14 were fixed? Okay. Yeah. So 52.
It's a moving target.
Yeah, it did change. Yep.
I think we talked about 52 at our meeting. That's where I got it from. So.
I just want to have a general sense of how that was dividing out.
It's about $285,000 in taxes.
That report's attached to the agenda as well in case you want to go.
And that's not a total removal of those properties. That's, if I'm correct, that's a 70%.
Depends.
Depends on the damage.
Variable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So.
All right. Any other questions?
I kind of have one, and if it's more appropriate at a different place, please just tell me. But so we heard about the growth in the grand list, the 4.6%, and I think at the last meeting we were kind of trying to figure out how much of that is due to growth and how much of that is due to revaluation. Do we have any?
We're still waiting.
Progress?
We're still working on it.
Still working on it. Okay.
It's very complicated.
I do understand it. It's
once we give you an answer, we want to be able to stand by it.
Totally understood. It is not a quick and easy thing.
And frankly,
yes,
we're extraordinarily busy.
I had noticed something about that. Yes.
Okay. John, projects?
Just a couple highlights. Had a lengthy meeting last week at DOT on a couple of our LOTSA projects. And the Swamp Road intersection project is the largest, most time-consuming on it. The state has decided that they are not relenting from requiring us to do total signal replacement, and that they will support giving us. It's a 100% grant. They will support giving us extra money, but that has to go through the Capital Region Council of Governments to make sure that they're willing to do it.
For the signal?
For the signal.
Not just for the other. Yeah, I know you changed. Yeah.
But that will take a year because we now have to redesign and we have to pay for the design fees. But they also decided that even though they had pre-screened all these projects, that based on the public information meeting that we had, residents wanted a soft right in, right out, where it would be mountable by emergency vehicles at Northfields, because the only other option would be then Forge Road, which is a long way around if you need something to come back in. So we expressed that concern when they wanted it hardened, where it basically would rip out the bottom of anything that goes over it, including a fire truck. Actually very expensive because it has to be cast concrete with big ridges in it. After a lengthy discussion where they made the mistake of asking us how we feel, we reached an agreement that the only alternative is really to do the Northfield to Swamp Road extender. And they will pay for that. So we'll get back more than the 20,000 or so of fees for the traffic signal. Now, that being the case, we will have to make that project work up to and including a taking for the rights that we need, not the house, but the rights for the back road. And I mentioned in the last meeting that there's not unanimous opinion in the household of going forward with that, but we no longer will have a choice. So at some point, we will try to, in good faith negotiations, work out, we're on a week or two away from having the values for that. And we would then be able to discontinue Northfields Road to substitute the acreage of land. They would gain that access, that road on the side of their house versus in the back rear yard of their house, where the road would go. So that's where that is, but the bottom line is that it's not going to happen this summer. Folly Lane Bridge has cleared a few hurdles. If we take down 6 trees by the end of March, or at least top them, so they're not enticing to bats for their mating season. The other good news is that we finally have gotten back out of DOT the South Street and the sidewalk project, which has been trapped in there for about a year and a half. So they had 3 questions that they finally asked us, and 10 minutes later we gave them the answers. And that's...
They didn't have any question and answer askers?
They really only have 1 or 2 people that came on all these lots of programs. But this was the expedited program that we're now in our 3rd year of the expedited program.
Super fast.
Do you want to mention just what labs it means, just for people?
Yeah, local transportation capital improvement program. Those are the keys on that. A couple other updates. If you haven't noticed, Cumberland Farms is going along rather fast. Connecticut Water has changed their schedule to get water from Swamp Road to across Boston Turnpike. And they're planning to do that on February 24th through the 26th. The state road will probably be on the 26th because that's when, right now, you can get asphalt only on Wednesdays, hot mix. We will probably, and we're still having an internal debate, but we'll probably be closing Swamp Road for those 3 days during the working hours, like we did while they were doing the rest of the water line. We'll make it happen faster. So they're not quite all the way down to the end of that road with their water main, but they have to continue down the remainder of Swamp Road and cross Route 44. So those are the big changes that are happening on all these projects. On the Folly Lane thing, they did agree to pay for our temporary solution to getting the golf cart trailers spot that they can turn around as part of the construction costs. So, very good meeting with them, and but I'd be glad to answer questions on the rest of the project.
Anybody have any questions for John on this?
I have one quick one under your item 7 about the concept plans for design options and cost for the 3 possible softball field locations. You mentioned a land restriction has arisen for the treatment plant. Is that something you can speak to at all? Or?
Yeah, the surveyor that we hired to do the work in its title search said that when the town acquired the property for the treatment plant, it said if we ever sold the property, we'd have to get a market value and refund like 80% or something like that. So the question is, would that be triggered by us continuing to use it for softball purposes or not? And we have to talk to the Department of Environmental Protection to find out if they're the ones that talk about it, or Farmers Home Administration, Rural Development Authority. And right now, as you're aware, DEP and the town are not in having one of our relations on sewers. So we are trying to find out who the right person to ask is. whether it's federal, whether that's deed restriction, a federal deed restriction or a state deed restriction.
But there's no purchase involved, correct? No sale?
No, but we had talked about looking at,
Doesn't speak to use, it just speaks to sale of the property.
Our attorneys are looking at it too, so that, it just calls the question that we have to be careful. So that's why we do the background work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, a microgrid update, John?
So the microgrid and cogeneration plant update.
Thank you.
We are continuing to make progress. A lot of the tiles are now generating data, so we can see. I mentioned last time that the middle school is doing some, having some spikes in their electrical usage, which they're trying to isolate by the circuits. But that's the advantage of having this type of information. You can actually see something is not, some motors turning on frequently.
Which location?
Middle school.
Middle school.
So they're trying to isolate which circuit within the middle school, and it could just be a effluent pump that's firing up too often. So without this type of...
Yes?
And there is no fan.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
They also are feeling more and more comfortable with at least one of their financial, one of the three firms they're dealing with financial is ready to commit within several weeks. And saw the first blush of an economic model, which is very sophisticated to show the relationship between energy usage and power purchase agreement rates and how they're all looking towards a net flow. Amanda was at a different meeting, so they need to have her take a look at it. And it's proprietary, so no.
That's not my question. That's not my question.
You had asked it in the past, though. So.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
In our minutes, we talked about that we thought about property taxes, and we weren't going to probably charge them as long as they weren't selling property energy off property. I didn't even know that was a possibility until I read those minutes again and reminded myself. So, is there a possibility that we're going to generate electricity that they're going to sell off-site? Is that what they're saying?
No, they're not planning on that. Okay. But if they do, that changes the taxation issue.
Why would we do that? That means we're generating power that they're...
Well, they would be generating power and selling surplus to someone else. And that could be a possibility to drive down the rates, but we're not in that. They're owning the plant. We're just buying electricity from it.
Right.
So, it's a possibility, but we haven't even agreed yet.
So they're going to pay for all the natural gas we use to generate
Well, right
their
now,
power that they're selling to somebody else?
they may be buying the natural gas.
Right.
So, and metering it, and that will be built into our PPA rate. There's going to be a lengthy discussion about that, and this is extraordinarily technical, and everything you touch has different outcomes. If we buy the natural gas, we don't pay sales tax. If they buy the natural gas, they pay sales tax. If it's built into the PPA rate, we could be protected from natural gas spikes. On the other hand, if it goes down, we don't get it.
They benefit, yeah.
So there's all sorts of issues, and for a 20-year agreement, they could be looking for some type of escalation clause, because otherwise today's rate would have to look at 20 years of energy costs. So there's a lot of, and that's where these models all have to change, and I just want Amanda to take a good look at that model first before anybody else sees it. But I can, in general, say...
Are you guys going to look at it?
They are very close to the thresholds of this not necessarily being an economical viable project. So, but right now they're looking at worst case scenarios, and they're still like the financial person that is committing is probably the highest interest rate. So they think they can do better if they can get one of the other two to go. So right now it's financially viable, and as they get more information, they're actually driving down costs of construction versus increasing costs of construction.
Is there a timetable with the state at all, how quickly they have to do this?
No, because a lot of it is right now we're filing for a pure application, so they're holding it up and Eversource is holding things up. So, but the pure application's going in next week, and that's the regulatory authority. To make this work, we want to have one master meter, and that's what, gets charged. And then there'll be sub-meters where we cost allocate between the Board of Ed and the town council or facilities, if we want to, town hall versus police. It continues, and on Thursday night, the building committee will be finalizing the request for proposals for design build for the high school and middle school unit ventilators, and there'll be an optional section on it and how that could tie into the microgrid. Oh, wow. So we've got lots of irons in the fire that are all coming together.
Are they proposing generating air conditioning too and all that? Because that would save, use
yes.
their energy better
So,
and save money.
So
then we have to pay for the air conditioning units.
Yes. So that's part of the option of how to take advantage of the waste heat in the warmer seasons.
We don't want AC in the winter. That's not
well, you might want the humidification. Their proposal never talked about that, so that would have to be like looking at the cost of a chilling tower and so forth like that. The building committee's looking at that, and we'll get some information out of that request for proposals, which is going to be kind of lining up, timeline they're lining up. So, and I think I told you that we have Fussett and Nail do that, and they'll be our construction manager and not installer. There's just so much going on. We're about ready to issue the capital lands RFP. We have the first draft of that, the final draft of that should go out next week. We have the final draft of the $20,000 capital land study. So there's just everything's hitting us all at once, and everything has a pressing timetable to get out the door.
Let's not do the budget this year, John. We'll just let it go.
So, unless there are other questions on the microgrid, I get the sense that we're really, within the next 30 days, we're going to have a lot of moves.
Does the state have any codes that we have to look out for in the installation of all this stuff in the school properties and things like that? I just want to make sure we follow codes when we're installing everything this time, and that they're aware that they're there, and make sure they're aware of them going in, not after the fact and stuff like that. I'm not saying that these people did anything like that, but
it's really when you talk about power generation, you're really talking about this is just a big furnace outside.
Good. And if there are no codes, I'm happy. But
there
are codes.
They're separating distances from buildings, and there's also noise codes. You don't want to have it too loud.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they address those. There's national codes, safety codes. So, lake management update. We got both the hydrilla and fanwort reports. Both are very interesting reading. Both are recommending that we continue work next year. Each of them has their own unique thing. On the fanwort, there's a discussion that actually happened last year about going a little bit further up in the inlets, and the water comes in and into the flowing river, both of which have cost implications and use of chemical implications. You've got to use more because it flows faster. The river flows and dilutes faster. I guess better word. So
I wondered if they ever do anything like divert the major flow, not the whole water, but the major flow, and then try to, be able to treat it, and then
you'd have to boom it off, and that would be costly to have those booms.
Yeah.
So that's really, at the end of the day, that's a DEP permitting issue.
It would have other implications too for the flow, so you have to.
And then on the hydrilla, we're back to the same debate we had a year ago. So both of these issues are recurring issues. On benthic barrier, are the NEAR, which is the survey company, aquatics inventory company has concerns about removing the benthic barrier because the potential impacts while you're removing it of stirring everything up on bottom. And Solitude says, well, you want to remove it because, you know, things can grow underneath it. And Near says, well, plants can't grow through, water goes through, just kind of like the landscaping material. That's really kind of what it is. So that issue hasn't been decided, but we know the cost, we have at least the cost of ecosystems removing it, and about $8,500 for the various pieces of it.
Do you know how big they are? Do you ever get those?
I know the GPS locations of where they are, their size. But all that information, I'm letting the firms talk among themselves, and we'll work this out. But we would take that money out, and it would happen kind of by May, early June at the latest. But we're still debating that. We're going to bring you information as we have it. But I've been sending lots of emails around and trying to work those things out.
One quick question. In the report, it says that it could cause fragmentation of hydraulic plants. Is there actual growth underneath the benthic barrier?
They see some growing just coming out from underneath.
The edges.
Okay.
They have those turions and tubers underneath.
So there's
fragmentees.
So I'm not surprised that if they're sticking
No,
up, that they don't get affected
that's a
by the
different thing.
chemicals. You know, that's all.
Yeah, so I think if we're hoping to eventually, as soon as possible, is a better way to say it, as soon as possible, avoid having to do lake-wide treatments, I think we have to figure out how to get at least the benthic barriers either removed or become more tattered. I mean, maybe it's go down there with razor blades and just cut them up. I'm just making this up. But in terms of getting the chemicals through them,
Yeah.
it's just fabric.
No, I do understand, yeah. No, that is definitely a concern of mine after reading all this stuff.
But there's a lot of dirt already on top of it, so by removing them, you know.
But we need to do that to get the Floridome to contact the turions and the things that are buried. Otherwise,
It won't go into the ground.
We'll be
Until they actually
reinfestation.
emerge before they would affect it, is that correct?
Right.
Yeah. They'd have to actually emerge before the Floridome can affect it.
Correct, but they're coming out around the edge.
Right, but the rest of it wouldn't. You can't get to the turions, I'm saying, unless they actually have, growth.
Well, yeah, the Floridome can't act on them because it removes the sunscreen for their photosynthesis, that protects their
Which they're not
photosynthesis.
conducting underground, so that's what I'm saying.
Right, so it'll just be a ticking time bomb underneath waiting until it gets disturbed through something and then.
So the reality is hydrolit's going to be here a long time, and it may be that you go for a number of years and then you have to do a whole big treatment or something like that too. So the survey part, I think, is going to have to be annualized. But I think we're ahead of ourselves. We know we have to do one more year at least, and then we'll see again. But the treatment itself was positive. So DEP has reviewed the reports. They had a couple comments that came in today. They need explanation, like this species was mentioned here but wasn't carried forward here. So it's some good research from them that we need to get answers on. So next item is Council of Small Towns. They're meeting tomorrow to adopt this legislative priorities, and
John and myself and you, John, will all be there.
and Amanda.
And Amanda.
Oh, if I knew you were going, I would have gone. Jeez.
So
I'm not going because she's going.
That's it.
So there's actually vote by the people there. So the chair thought it might be wise if there's something here that you really support or something here you really don't support.
Yeah, that you let us know so we can talk about it tomorrow.
I had a couple of questions as I went through it, if that's what you want to talk about. I don't know if that's...
Yep.
Quick, under the public concerns for assisting towns removing dead and decaying trees, are the diseased trees decaying? Do they, or can we add diseased trees? Because we know they're coming down and we know they're going to be a hazard. And we'd like to remove them before they become one.
Well, the minute they have...
They call it decaying? That's what I'm asking,
Yeah,
is that describe decaying?
emerald ash borer, the minute it's there, it's decaying.
It's decaying. So as soon as the bark start comes off or whatever.
As soon as they bore it in, right?
Yeah, so when the bark starts shedding, you know for sure, but there's signs before that in terms of leaf blowout and so forth. So, but it's in the third year when the bark starts falling off. So you can usually spot it before that.
Right, but is that, at one point does the state determine it's going to be decaying if you say decaying instead of disease? That's what I'm asking.
Probably once it's decaying.
There's no good way to actually, well, you have to do trapping, but you don't know if it's in the area. But the bottom line is, if it's an ash tree, it's going to have it. So I think.
That's all. I just wanted, it's a, way to say things, and the state likes to say them the way that they interpret for their benefit.
Whatever the legal term would be.
Right. And under waste management, I don't know if they're recommending any changes to their waste management legislation, like the single streaming and all the other things that.
Yeah, these are broad statements. It's hard to know exactly what we'd be asking them to support or not. I mean, we certainly would like
right. Each of these will become an 8-page law. So I don't think we can do that. I mean, they're general broad policy statements is all we're asking for. I don't think we're going to ever go back to single stream. It's just too costly.
We're in Silver Stream. Single stream.
To go back to sorted curve.
Oh, sorted curve.
It's just.
Well, they'd have to redo the plants. That's the problem.
I don't think DEP, it's not a DEP's master plan.
Okay.
DEP's. They want even more, they want to do more cradle to grave type of stewardship products. I think that's going to be the solution of bring back your paint, bring back your bed. Those types of things which are very effective. Tires, batteries.
Well, there are some easy ones. One of these is remove regulatory barriers to sanitary sewer extension projects needed to support housing.
I wonder where that came from.
Where did that crop up from? I'm a fan.
And I had a question because I didn't know what it is. It says reduce construction costs for municipal projects by increasing the $50,000 project threshold for municipal set-asides. What are municipal set-aside requirements?
2 years ago, they put in a new law that anytime, any capital project that has a cost over $50,000, we have to go have a minority set-aside.
Oh, that's what it is, minority.
Minority and women business enterprise. And that's what got us into issues with our.
If you can't find a minority company, then you have issues.
Beyond that, there are some people that take advantage of those laws, and the contractor on the lake gate paid $20,000 for somebody that never showed up to satisfy that requirement. So we, went to CHRO and say this wasn't a legitimate contract. We're told to mind our own business. But if it's just raising the cost of doing business at the taxpayer's expense, it's not good. If it's a legitimate trying to get businesses established program, it's excellent. So there has to be some
oversight.
Yeah, but we also think the 50,000 threshold is too low, and we would like it to jive with prevailing wage, because then you have these two different regulations. And when they started that, CHRO was also supposed to get 8 additional staff people. Instead, their staffing was reduced by 3 people. So there's backlogs. They can't do it. So good intentions and outcomes need to be looked at. And if they raise the price threshold, a lot of our little projects would. And sometimes, like the unit ventilators, we're going to deal with a contractor that's going to design and build it. They will have to somehow find a minority subcontractor for something. But if it's a company of 5 people that does this type of work, it's going to be hard for them to find that. Road construction jobs sometimes are easier, but when you get into paving only jobs, there's one minority paving contractor in the state bid. Very good contractor. Everyone loves it when they get the job, but they don't have the staff capacity.
So there's lots of good things in here, but one of the things that I thought was really important would be support the fair share education funding issues. I think both of those are very good. And number 3, under promote savings and efficiencies in education. Number 4. Prohibit boards of education from hiring any administrative personnel for positions which are not included in the proposed adopted budget without town concurrence. I think that would be a good direction to go. I don't know if everybody else wants to increase the bottle deposit fee. I wasn't in favor of that. I'm sorry, nobody knows where I am. Under
Number 2.
assist town in meeting environmental goals, it's number 2. It says address concerns regarding increasing municipal recycling costs by increasing the bottle deposit fee.
And locally, we say, and add tip bottles. Nip bottles.
Yeah, that actually was brought up, yeah.
I think it's part of
I thought they put a quarter on
what's
those
being
already.
discussed.
Yeah, I think so.
I think
I
they
don't know
already put
if
a
they-
quarter on them,
No,
yeah.
I don't think so.
I read that they had.
They did something with them.
I think there was maybe a proposal that didn't
Maybe.
go all the way.
Maybe they'll bring it up again.
Yeah, that would definitely be helpful, because those are what
They're
you find all
everywhere.
over the road.
Yeah.
And we're not the only town that's
No,
like
no.
that.
No, it's everywhere.
It's within a mile of any package store.
There you go.
John, I don't know if you had concerns about number 4 under that same one, was require the state Department of Energy and Environmental Protection provide potable water to residents whose private wells have been impaired due to road salt.
Yeah, I got that one in too.
Is that right?
I got 4 of them in there.
Wow.
Did you do the 5G one as well?
Yes.
Because I would support that.
Yeah.
Where is it, Lisa?
Under economic development, number 5.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be on
Page
NBC
3.
News this week.
Oh, good.
My best off 5G.
Great.
Is out at least. Might get on the other 4. But I've been too boring.
So are there any others that people don't support? Maybe we should just do those, because there's a lot of support for most of these, so.
And this is a short session, so if we get like 3 of these, it's good.
Yeah, exactly.
They have their hands full of them.
Very good.
So, do you want me to buzz through capital?
Sure.
So it's not this one.
I'll sit over here to go through this, but it's a little rushed this year to try to get you something so you can start thinking about the capital budget. So this is, under the town charter, it requires that the manager prepare a capital improvement plan of what the long-term needs of the community is. It gets incorporated into your budget, which you'll get in less than 2 weeks. So these are the numbers that will be in that budget. So it gives you a heads up to start thinking about some things, and as we get into the budget process, we can answer questions. So what's a capital improvement program and why? This is the same slide as last year. It's a multi-year planning instrument. You can set your priorities by coordinating projects. You make sure you're not doing something and then digging it up later. It helps in just having something in the out years, getting grants so that you're not just making something up to get the grant, but it's actually a community need. And the Planning and Zoning Commission has to review under Connecticut General Statute 8-24 any kind of major capital improvement, land acquisition, lease, improvement, not capital purchases like trucks and so forth. So what a capital improvement plan really is, it's a map to the future and it shows you the big picture. So our capital improvement history, you can see that we're continuing to go up. We've had some dips and valleys, but if you look back up here, back out a few more years, we're kind of up in this range here, so we went down and we're slowly building back up. In your handout that you have tonight, you can read these numbers, but basically this chart, which is in your handout, it shows where the money's going, the various departments and agencies, and where the money's coming from. And we'll go through some of these in detail, so you don't have to get into too much here, but there's some bonding, again, part of it.
You know what? Thank you. I'll probably do it.
So this one's a little easier to read. So it compares the year that we're in the adopted and the year that we're requesting going forward, shows the increases and decreases. So in the general fund, which is taxation out of budget, is 240,000. When you look in the chart, you'll see that at 1.72, next year's over 2 million, and the year after that's over 2 million, and the year after that's like, you know, so for years I've been saying we had to get over $1 million and more. We don't quite get there, and a lot of those projects don't go away, they just become more costly. So at some point we do have to keep moving forward. So there are options. But road money stays the same, LoCIP money stays the same, capital non-recurring expenditure, really kind of what we're putting in is 170, what we're taking out is 123, not too different than last year. State, federal grants, and so forth, there's a detailed sheet on that. Proposing that we consider getting authorization this year to bond about $4.4 million, and I'll show the 4 projects for that. The borrowing will probably actually happen in next year, although I think we need to look carefully at the existing market right now. Manchester just hit 1.89% for 20-year bonds. Just phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Just phenomenal.
What's their financial rating? It can't be.
They're AAA. But actually, on Standard & Poor's, they're AA plus like us. They're AAA for Fitch. And Moody's.
And Moody's.
So they are.
What's their fund balance? It can't be 20%.
No, but you know, they have a good mix of commercial revenues. So they're solid towns, but that's like land breaking. That you got to start thinking about. That I mean, if in our investments,
you own.
In our investments, you know, we're getting more money back, like in our pension program, than we are in our guaranteed investment income than that, like twice as much. So I don't like what this, but anyways, all this is in there. So actual cash in the capital improvement plan is 1.172,500. So summer roads, again, we've been sticking at 300,000 to match that with the 300,000 Town Acre Road that we may someday get. School computers staying at 175. Town hall computers staying at 40,000. Now, be aware that the school board asked for a heck of a lot more than that because they want to start doing system-wide refresh, all the big servers and so forth, and switches and firewalls, and I just couldn't fund it, but they wanted it to almost $200,000 more. $250,000. So, classroom furniture, we're sticking at the same 30,000. Police SUV vehicles, that's 2 of them, so it should be a plural. The cars are just about $40,000, but they're $15,000 a piece to outfit because Ford changed their model.
Oh, so the ones going out of service don't have the equipment you can take off?
We can't recycle it because they're slightly different, so everything, the stuff in the back trunk, the cage between it, the light bar even. So I swear that Ford owns.
They didn't do that on purpose, right? No.
Ford must own stock in those companies. We're going to back off a few things that they asked for, like the crash barrier up front, because we did that in case we hit deer, and then the deer ran up the side of our car, and that did the door instead. But we're going to trade one in to try to get us down to this 106 number versus what they asked for. Scott Air.
Wait, you said it was 40 for how much per vehicle?
No, cars were 40.
Right. Oh, isn't that what we're talking about?
40 each plus 50.
Plus 50, so 55,000, a little over 55,000 each.
So the 106 is 4,000 on the.
It's traded.
I think
That's
they
it.
requested 112 in total. for the two vehicles, and we cut it down slowly.
I saw, okay.
The fire department asked for Scott air packs and fire hose and fire gear. They asked for probably $40,000-$50,000 more than this. Open space fund, and they'll be in and talk to you, and they have numbers to show that. It's just a matter of, we're going to have to come up with more for them as soon as possible.
There was a time when our capital improvement plan would have had us at 75,000 approximately by this year. I mean, that's a fund that's been whittled away at and stayed stagnant for a lot of years. When it was first created, the projection was for it to grow.
Yes. Open space fund has been whittled down to 15,000. We were supposed to actually probably be up towards 100,000 by now. And firehouse security access, as part of the whole merger, we want to have one key system that opens all the firehouses. CNREF, again, 170,000, which we're putting in now. The library, HVAC, they need a software upgrade. It doesn't, it's currently running on a Windows 7 computer, which is not secure. So somebody could hack into their system and take over their library. And it can't run on a new computer. The software's not able, can't run on Windows 11. So, check.
I don't even think it was Windows 7, I think.
Oh, XP,
Yeah,
right, it was
yeah,
XP.
Very, very stable.
So, the library needs to control their software for their heating ventilation system. Fire service, we have a small rescue truck that's 22 years old in the north end. We're proposing to make it even smaller and more do like a pickup truck with some service equipment on it, and the small first tools of life. But instead of buying a full small rescue truck, which would be more like $180,000 to $200,000, we'll be at that. Small mower, this is one of our ride-on mowers, 12,500. Remember, these mowers work 5 days a week. And they last about 6 years. So, engine checker refurbishment, the second year of a project, we put 50,000 in this year. We're still getting in prices for that scope of work that the fire department came up with, and there may be an opportunity here to either cut some money out or repurpose it as the fire departments come into some of their other needs. We got the first quote in that was more in the range of 100,000 versus the 120,000 that we were thinking it was going to be.
And there's 50 already there.
There's 50 already there. So we have one bid that's closer to 100,000 that we'll have to see. But we're waiting for 2 more bids in, and then we have to do the evaluation. But there's also a possibility, scoping of work that we're looking at, putting a front feed line in.
Suction, front suction?
I'm not so sure it's suction or
Supply.
And that's 15,000 of that 100,000. So maybe if we're only going to keep this truck for 5 to 7 years, it didn't happen in the first place, that's not the place to do it. So I talked to Jim and Bud about looking at if this isn't, if we save that, maybe we could use it to get some of our other needs. So we have, the Board of Ed has a pupil services van for their 18 to 20-year-old needs program. We are trying to see whether we can get a grant for that, and this would be a grant match. The van, they asked for $70,000. We think if we get a smaller van, we can get it down to more like $62,000. And there's a $50,000 grant that may be able to do it if we talk about it at workplace, work skills thing, which is really what it is. Because these are 18 to 20-year-olds, and not just students, and we're off-site.
What features, special features does this van have?
It has to be handicap accessible. So it'd be more like the smaller van that we just got, and through the same program, the 5311 program. That was 5310. I have a typo on that. But it's a very effective fan. So, and then lake management, we spent a lot of time looking at all this, looking at what money we have left, looking at what money we're proposed to spend, and we believe we made $100,000. And we'll go through the detail of that. It's in the page if you want to look at the map. So we will keep a balance in the fund for, we're expecting a $25,000 state grant. So we have $25,000 in case that doesn't come through. And we have a little money, about $15,000 or so, if my memory serves me right, for things that crop up that we don't think of, and we usually hire Ecosystems to do some extra testing and results on top of the other results. So we are looking at what's left in that account and what possibilities to do that.
Will be benthic barrier removal?
Benthic barrier would be a net out of that this spring, before. So that's
okay,
in
before.
the
All
map.
right.
62 there.
So LoSiP, we have 6 projects proposed for $100,000. Patriots Park, $25,000. We put in some extra money out of the Patriots Park Fund, but the community center roof has to go. It's just falling apart. I know everyone wants to not put money into a building that may not be there, but the reality is it's got to be replaced, and I don't think we're going to be into any type of new community center in any time reasonably. Doesn't mean you don't start talking about it, but it's going to be, probably a decade. Precinct park improvements. We'd like to fix up one of the buildings so that we really have one building that's suitable for public use. They're all kind of decaying, and we've got to start working on them. Laidlaw Park, $10,000 to hopefully get something moving with the septic system up there to get the trailer installed and functioning. Small bridges and culverts, we've identified over $100,000 of work. We have some money with prior approvals that we're trying to get out. Guardrail, we've got $50,000, $60,000 for guardrail work in 10. And the town hall locking system, if you thought the XP computer was old,
Where's this black
raise your hand if you know what
whatever.
IPAC is.
There you go, compact PDA.
That's what we have to use, and we had a hard time just finding a battery replacement on Amazon. And then anyone could use it, but we about 2 months ago lost control of our locks.
You should say that publicly, John.
No, we don't have back control, but again, having to order a battery and redo all the doors.
The doors are open, so.
Just come on in.
Spend hours.
People's home.
But, leap year, that's bad. It screws this up. And then they moved the time change. And that, so all our time, all the locks open during an hour early or an hour late, depending on how the season is. So that's what we're proposing.
Hard coded.
And I can tell you, we just have to replace the locks in the town hall. Other minor funds. So Patriots Park, chipping in towards the roof, tower equipment chipping in towards some radio improvements, transfer station for potential transfer station. Cobra has set aside that money, so it's not new money. Library renovation.
So you could just read it the way it says, John. Relocation or renovation of the transfer station. That's all you got to do. Just read it.
Relocation, renovation of transfer station.
The John E. Memorial Transfer Station.
No.
Wait, what?
I don't think that's appropriate.
So, library renovation, we have some money for the prior bonds that would be applied to a new project. Van Wart, Town of Mansfield, we're kicking $8,500. The prior capital, lake management funds, kicking $7,500 towards that. The sewer fund is replacing and rehabbing a clear adjuster for $200,000. They want to do some lining of the sewer pipe underneath the lake because they're worried about decay within that line. And if they get the slip liner through while it's still in one piece, they're worried at some point if you have It actually goes on the lake in some sections, and we just want to make sure it's not leaking there, because a leak there would be bad.
That would be
leak-
very bad.
It would leak in, by the way. It would
Yeah, yeah.
It would leak out. It would leak in.
Sure.
Flood our treatment plant.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Flood the system.
that'd be bad.
So, kind of we're using money that is set aside for different projects, so $683,000 under the plan. State and federal grants, we haven't announced it yet, but our capital improvement plan calls for doing a steep grant right now for a water tower to get the insurance rates down in the village and fire and open up other economic development possibilities by allowing low pressure sprinklers based on those things. At some point, the council will make a decision on that. We're waiting for the
Hydrants too, or?
hydrants are actually in the ground
Right.
underneath.
They're not-
Just have to put the
there's no
heads on.
water there yet, right?
They don't have the capacity to.
That's what I'm saying, is that put the water tower as part of that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it pressurized that system that it could run 4 hydrants that were installed there. Everyone's houses around that and businesses, their insurance rates would go down. We almost lost one of our businesses because they had to, their fire pond is failing, the dam is failing. So, and they now have to be insured through Lloyd's of London. And they would save a lot of money if we got that here. They employ 36 people, so we want to try to make sure that we look at that. We're anticipating getting $25,000 for lake management. I didn't have it right.
You did.
And library renovation, $850,000. CNREF, again, $170,000 in. $83,000 would go towards the fiber install for schools to match E-rate grants to connect THR and Coventry Grammar School to replace the charter line, charter spectrum line.
Yeah.
So.
Who decided it comes out of CNREF? I'm just asking, I'm not saying.
I'm proposing.
Okay.
They put it in cash as their capital improvement request. I didn't think we could add to
No,
that.
I understand.
So they are potentially starting the work in March, and the Board of Ed paid a down payment.
Oh, this is the one where they're making multiple payments.
Right. So this would be the July payment. So there's a whole boatload of money that's coming in through E-rate, much more than the $83,000. And $40,000 for staff SUV, and $47,000 would go to help rebuild the fund. We only have one lease purchase. It's another large dump truck. We did not get a grant this year, so it's a 7-year lease for $32,300 annually. And when Mark Kiefer said he can explain the reasons for this truck replacement, but it's old and it's tired. Our replacement schedule talks about 10 years for a truck. We're running about 15 years.
It's not
You know-
bad lease rate, you're only paying $16,000 in interest over 7 years. That's not bad.
Do you know if this is one of the new, like, the clean?
Yeah, there'll be
even
clean
though there's
diesel.
no grant
Yes.
associated with it,
Yes,
it's basically
that's
the
all
same
you can
truck.
buy.
Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure.
Yes.
So-
So it's a cleaner air diesel.
Got it. We don't have to drill a hole in it and block the old one.
No.
Got it.
So
We're not going to propane trucks or anything?
I hear bad things about propane trucks. Hydrogen is more of a possibility than propane. And it's cleaner, burns cleaner than propane. But electric dump trucks are not there yet, but school buses are really real. And there's some significant grants out there for school bus fleets, for electric school bus fleets.
Fleets, we have to buy them all at once?
Fleets. Or they require your contractor to have that.
Right. Yeah.
Tesla's got electric 18-wheelers, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
So
Maybe soon.
Their
school bus thing is very intriguing to me personally, I'd say.
Well, partly the diesel stuff that comes out of the school buses is not good for the kids either.
Yeah, this is why, this is my
For
main
people
concern.
behind them.
Yeah.
People behind them, he said.
Yeah, the problem one, you know.
When you stop for the stops all the time.
Yeah, and then they have to accelerate away from the stops.
So, again, you look at our debt service from '09, we've really kind of stabilized that well. And that includes, our sewer debt. We updated this chart. It shows our annual per capita debt service and then compares it to the state average, which is the blue line.
This is without all the new projects that you're proposing?
Yeah, this is historic. And this is to what we can get through the municipal fiscal indicators information. But our debt actually has continued to decrease or stabilize.
High school finally done.
Just a regional comparison on debt service for neighboring towns. Besides Columbia, which has a fund balance somewhere in the 20%.
Yeah, I know. They just pay cash with everything.
And Mansfield.
They just have UConn. Just that pilot project.
We are very competitive with our neighbors to where we are as a percentage of equalized debt as a percentage of our equalized grant.
This Talon number can't include their new building right now. Okay.
Except, how much of it.
Yeah, most of it's getting paid by the state.
80% is being paid for, and the portable classrooms are being paid for.
So really, they're paying for the internet stuff too? Oh, wow.
100% of the portable classrooms.
So,
why not get a new school?
Well, it's not like they had a choice.
Right, no.
They had a crumbling foundation.
Actually,
Crumbling
only half of
concrete.
the building. The building was built in two separate times. They could have saved half of the building.
But
the other half didn't have it.
If you're only paying 20%.
But projected debt service by year kind of shows our long-term trends by where the water is.
Yeah, look at it next year.
We're
going to change.
So, again, if we borrowed money this year, the year we're coming up, this is the year we'd start paying the debt, so we have that capacity. So you can kind of see where there's opportunities for projects, and this could be the community center here.
There you go.
But
2028.
Otherwise, you wait a long time before you have these significant.
No, they'll only be 8, 9 years old. What do you mean?
So bonding,
2028, he said.
Bonding, school roofs.
20 now.
Yeah, sorry.
School roofs, $2.5 million. The Robertson School addition and the high school complex are 22 years old, will be 24 years old. There's a 20-year roof. I'm waiting for Bill Trell to give me mapping of the roof of the band room is leaking significantly. So it's not good.
Is there anything that has to happen with the solar? I know they.
No, they didn't put solar over those sections.
They didn't put over
They
those
put
sections.
solar over the sections of the roof that we already did.
Okay.
So the old section of the Robinson School and the Grammar School both got new 30-year roofs.
Okay.
And the middle school, that was also 30-year roofs. So library renovations, the building committee is going to present at your next meeting. So I can show you quickly again the plan, but I think deferring that discussion.
Is that the number that they came up with? Or you just put it in?
They may be looking at 1.4. I'm still working with Ken Best on some things. And the high school, middle school fire alarm system, which is also at 22 years old, is not serviceable, and they had a hard time getting parts, and it was off, and they had to have a fire watch, meaning the generator had to be on duty. So that's $180,000, and unless we want to pay cash, we have to borrow money to do that. But it has a 20-year life. It's an appropriate capital improvement when you're looking at that length of time. And as a placeholder here, I don't know where, but we're getting a lot of discussion about the softball field. I don't even know if it's a good price. They asked for $200,000. I think it's $500,000, so I aired at $400,000.
Depends on which site's chosen too, though, right?
That's absolutely true. So just for discussion purposes in a sense going forward. None of these numbers are cast in stone at all. Obviously, the council could pick and choose whether something's even on that list.
Which one they're talking about, he doesn't know.
Alternates there. So in terms of just a visual presentation of the high school roof, within the green area is the area for the roof. So
This is the picture.
So it's the connector.
It is.
This is the old high school, this is the old middle school, it's this green connector here. That area needs the roof.
This one.
The roof's right there.
When I printed it, John, all I get is the little outlined area.
I got a mouse
Same here.
cursor.
Yep, there's a mouse cursor.
All right, it's time for new photo.
The mouse cursor's up there as well. Just doesn't show the rest.
Robertson School, this is the, kind of the wing, the gym's over here, and then this wing. That's where that needs to be. Just buzz through real quickly, because you're going to spend time. This is the existing library. This is the entranceway in the courtyard area. Under their proposal right now to enclose the courtyard, this is what that section would look like. And this is the side view of what it would look like. So again, the plan, the courtyard, the entranceway would be closed. This is the downstairs where you come down a staircase. The elevator would be here. You'd have 2 bathrooms. This would be the meeting room, community room area, so it'd be isolated off from the rest of the building. And you can compare that to kind of the existing space here. This become part of the children's room and new collections for the kind of mid younger but not quite teenagers would be in this area here. So we'll spend much more time on it upstairs. Again, new entranceway coming in, the existing door, adding second bathroom here, so the building would actually have 5 bathrooms. Under code, we only have 2 right now under code. We don't need code, and as part of the presentation, I'll have a whole list of all the code issues, including fire exits and other issues. So that's all being prepared. The building committee's meeting next Wednesday to get ready for your meeting. Ken Best is still working in town's construction, and Ken Best are talking about options. But so softball fields, these are options that are being discussed right now. You could overlay 2 softball fields on the football fields that are up on the landfill.
That would probably be the least expensive.
This would absolutely be the least expensive. You already have a good parking lot for them. This you can't see at all, but this is the treatment plant land.
You should see it on our pictures, it's really good.
So this is the town property line is here. This is the end of one of the sewer lagoons. So this would save space that they could add other lagoons if they needed to, but there's 2 softball fields shown here. This is the Willamette River. And this is South Street Extension, and this is Main Street. So Miller Richards Field's right here, so it's across the street. We just need to get in here onto our land, and we could have softball fields parking. So you're cutting down a bunch of trees here. You have a lot of trees.
Yeah, but that's okay. It's pretty level too, and it's got great
level,
drainage.
so you start getting here, you can start seeing it slopes down, but you can come down and actually have trails through here and then down, and actually almost have like a roadway kind of curling down here where you could actually have a kayak launch or something below the river. So again, we have that deed restriction thing we just need to clarify before we go too far. The other options, and this was really hard for me to get a picture rushing this afternoon, but this is the area of the existing transfer station, parking, and then another field and another gravel pit.
Where's the second field?
So there's a field that goes here.
Just off screen.
Oh, it's off screen.
Partially off screen.
And, at 4:45 tonight, this is the best I can get done.
Could you highlight the existing transfer station again?
I think it's right here.
Okay.
This transfer station on this field. So this is more in a gravel pit, and if you look at the cost here, see these grade lines?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
That's
really steep. That's not good.
So it's likely that you would do a cut and fill, but,
All the way through the project, right?
so this is the existing kind of Plains Road that goes up to 44. So what's not included? We don't have any money in here for wind code compliance because we have no idea what it is. We're working on that. We have a meeting with de Blasio coming up. De Blasio is working on it right now until we've authorized the money. So it's probably going to be another month and a half or so before we know. But again, we're going to take the concerns right now that they're stronger than the walls that are connected. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank
For putting that together.
And we'll talk a lot more as we go through the budget process because this is a plan.
Can we get this page
Cleaned up.
a little bit clearer?
It's like it was moving when you
It's just a little blurry, or it's a low-res image.
It's in your capital improvement plan
It's
now.
in that big packet that
Okay.
you mentioned. Yeah, there's a lot of.
Perfect, thank you.
That was a screen print.
We have no unfinished business. Under new business, item 10A, 19/20-46, consideration, possible action, reappointment of special constable, John Chipman.
So for discussion, I'll move to reappoint the special constable, John Chipman.
Second.
Now we're going to discussion.
So, for discussion purposes, this would be probably the fourth time we've done this. It allows him to issue tickets. So, as part of his duties, he also does vehicles that are junk vehicles, and can issue tickets for that. He can also issue just other tickets. He has no rent powers or any of those authorities. He's not a police officer. But he can also issue park ordinances, park violation ordinances, etc.
So he can only act on town property, correct? Or it says land controlled by corporation, association, or business, but that means us, right?
Yep. Not on roads, is that?
Well, that's what I was wondering.
Well, I could issue parking tickets.
Okay.
Road is a parking ticket, it's town property.
Okay.
So sometimes in the winter, you can go out if your car's...
Snowman.
Yeah, snowman.
Very good.
All right. No more questions? All those in favor of approving this reappointment, please say aye.
Aye.
Next item in new business, 10B, 19/20-47, consideration, authorization, resolution approving application for 2020 CDBG Small Cities Grant and to authorize John A. Elsesser, our town manager, to execute.
Do you need to read the entire resolution, John?
No, I think you just move to adopt the resolution.
Move to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or further discussion?
Hope we get it this year.
Yeah. It's a good thing.
I didn't think that, we want to
Great.
thank the staff. I know it's a real lot of work too, John.
That one, actually, our grant consultant does.
Oh, okay.
And earns his keep.
Peter.
Yeah, Peter Huckett. So we did, again, I mentioned last time, we did go through a competitive proposal and chose to stay with them because of his experience.
You know, it's a big one.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the application to be signed by John Elsesser, please say aye.
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 Next item, 10C, 19/20-48, consideration, possible action, sale of town property on Hinkle May Drive.
So you have the town ordinance that allows us to sell off unused municipal owned lots, and this would have to be sold.
Especially isolated lots.
Yeah, and we go through a process of evaluating them, and then it goes to planning and zoning commission under Connecticut General Statute of 24. authorize it. We would then have to go through a process to take sealed bids, and the minimum price would be the assessed value. I think in this particular case, well, I guess there isn't a butter. On South Street, that could pick it up as a rear yard. So we'll have to go through a sealed bid process and notify, there's actually 3 abutters. So.
But one of Butters is the one that raised this issue, correct? We didn't bring it to him. He brought it to us. If he wants to pay extra, no. Just
So if you look at it, we don't have any part of what we look at is connectivity to surrounding land. So.
Which property owner is the one? Oh, so it's the one to the right, 462.
462.
How did the town come to own this particular one?
We own lots of little pieces. Sometimes they were either gifts or no owners or
didn't pay taxes and left town.
We would have sold that right away, I would assume.
Some of these lots go back to the 20s, and sometimes we don't really know the history. We could go back and look at the history, but it really generally doesn't matter. But
So I had mentioned this before. Are we doing a review every once in a while to see what?
Not really. It's a huge project for minimal return. You may get $2,000 or $3,000, and the staff time is enormous. And for a while, we were going through, and people were.
You don't think some UConn students want to do a project for you?
Well, you have to remember that there was also a period of time when people were very afraid of the Ducey development around the lake.
Right.
So when we sell this, it's dedicated open space. It can't be developed upon except potentially a septic system if they need to do that. But there's restrictions that are put on it. But we looked at we did.
How old are those restrictions? Is that before the sewer?
Like this area doesn't have sewers.
Okay.
We did go to go a little bit more. We did go and look at the more valuable pieces, the larger pieces that may be developable, and we couldn't even reach agreement. We have 2 or 3 that could be buildable, and people started freaking out about them, and everyone complained. So,
the owners, you mean, or somebody?
All the neighbors. Nobody wants a house next to them. They'd rather have town-owned space that they don't have to pay taxes on. But there's
so they like all of us to pay more taxes so that we don't sell the property and get the taxes.
There's only 2 or 3 probably marginally developable, and they would require sewer connections.
So what's the size of this one?
It's right.
0.15 acre. 0.15 acre. The approximate size.
And most of these little lake lots are 20 or 30 feet wide.
Yeah.
It usually took 4 of them to build a house on.
Can they put a driveway on it, or a shed, or can they do any of that stuff?
No.
You can't do any of that?
Garden.
Grass, garden.
That would be a benefit, I'm just,
It does help you, especially around the lake region, with developable land. We have percentages. So it will help you there.
Yeah.
It would also help you put a shed that you might otherwise have to go to ZBA because it's close to the
Too close to the line now. Now your line.
So you could put a shed on this property?
No, but you could put a shed on your property line.
Close to that
On
line.
the existing lot, just
Yeah.
close to that.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
gotcha.
you'd have to go to ZBA and get a variance for it because it's too close.
Gotcha.
On the referral form from planning and zoning, it said that they definitely want to do this because it makes the lot larger and more conforming.
Yeah, but we're not selling it to this owner.
Yeah.
So we may not be in control of who purchases it.
I mean, your policy right now requires, competitive bids.
I guess there's more than one
With
about
a mid.
Got it. Understood.
I guess it would increase one of their properties either way, right?
The one on South Street is large enough, the other one on the other side is too small. And I don't know what, anyone owns that land.
All right, so then what is our next step?
If you authorize it, we'll follow the ordinance on sale of town property.
Move to authorize the sale of property at
Hinkle May Drive.
Hinkle May Drive.
Yep.
Right.
Second?
Thank you, John. Any more discussion?
You don't need that to reference the specific property.
It's here,
on the
map
agenda.
Q, block K, lot 43.
Yep.
If you take
It's
that
cleaner to
friendly
say.
Assessor
amendment.
map Q, lot K, lot 43.
Just take it off the agenda. Move on.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 You okay?
Well, we didn't, that motion wasn't to specifically sell it to this abutter, right?
No.
Okay. I'm just looking at how the memo to you is phrased.
Right, it is phrased that way in the memo to you
But
from
we didn't
Eric.
just move the memo, we just moved
No.
the
Correct.
Per contract.
identification of the parcel.
We authorize the sale of this parcel in according to.
So per my discussion, would be per the policy.
Okay. I just got a little nervous when you started saying, take it off the agenda. Yeah, it's just on the agenda.
Oh, she said take out the numbers.
The specific address. All right, next would be 10D, 19/20-49, consideration/possible action, easement end of Pine Knoll Drive.
So, as you can tell by this very clear, clear map.
It is
Now you know how we
crystal
feel.
clear. Crystal clear.
So, Sam Green Road comes down, and there's a road that Pine Knoll, and there's a house on this cul-de-sac here, and eventually this road was supposed to continue on. So we own this little unbuilt road stub. And,
Yep.
There's another road up there somewhere that he wants a driveway across?
he owns a big piece of land.
The land is
here.
just there.
Oh, I see.
And he wants basically to just put a driveway here. And we've done this once before up on Joshua Lane. He actually has, the owner of the land has frontage on Main Street. But there's a big wetlands complex here. So this makes it more marketable. The reality is, I don't personally believe that there'll ever be a subdivision, but when this was put in, they were thinking at some point there could be a subdivision that could come over to Richmond Road or circle back in. But there's some wetlands complexes. The price of roads probably doesn't make it realistic anymore. So,
Do we own a small portion of land there that we could sell?
Well-
As opposed to giving him an easement and
we
make our
just have
property
this
unusable?
road stub. So it's an
Okay.
unbuilt road stub, and we would just grant an easement across our road.
Okay.
With the condition that if the road ever needed to go in, it would go in. So,
And then he would lose his, well, he wouldn't need his driveway.
he would need his driveway. So he has actually, his frontage would actually be on Main Street, but access would be here. So there's a fairly large acreage there, and kind of wants to put his, he wants to sell it to somebody that's looking kind of a dream farm horse kind of thing, because the acreage is significant enough. So you don't need to take action tonight. We can send it through the planning and zoning
That's what I
approval
was going to say,
process.
there's no approval yet.
You don't need to, but if you're not interested at having planning and zoning commission at all look at this, then we stop it now. I kind of support it because I think it supports a large lot, and the other option is to make somebody put in a road with a new cul-de-sac, which would be probably $200,000.
Might never happen. Okay. I haven't gone to see it, but it sounds okay.
You could see it on the GIS system.
That's where I looked at it.
This is Pine Knoll, that's a little stubby, and that's this little.
Oh, okay.
So it's a nice sized lot that,
Where it's frontage
And there's
on
two
Main
houses, there's
Street.
two properties there already?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they
So-
have a
so
vested
it's just our
interest in.
little piece in between.
Yeah, and the town would make sure that those two residents, the Planning and Zoning Commission would make sure that they're aware of that. Those lots actually have.
How come you got that? I didn't get that in mind.
I got it myself.
It's a bonus.
I went looking.
It slopes up, so actually at the cul-de-sac and where those houses are, they slope up, and the town preserved rights for slope rights. Though they probably won't need as severe slope rights because the driveway's much smaller than the.
Narrower than a road
narrow,
would
but
be.
there's gonna have to be enough engineering done to make sure that the drainage all works and everything else. So it's still not just a piece of cake. It's gonna be a significant driveway as it is.
Wetlands doesn't have to look at it, right? There's no wetlands right there.
No.
So what action would we?
Just conceptually, are you willing to kick it to the next step and see what comes back from the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Sure. I think so. Yeah. Like you said, it supports a large lot as opposed to a subdivision or another cul-de-sac push.
Well, it could, but he isn't thinking it could support a subdivision.
I think they would need to get a different way out. I think they're kind of at the maximum length of a road. So you'd have to find another way out. And there's ways that you could do it, which is why the planning and zoning, save that road stuff, it was good planning. But
That's why we'll let them look at it though, right? That's what we're talking about doing,
Yeah.
is sending it further.
Right, because my questions would have been, gee, John, I want more information from planning and zoning.
Yep.
So we need
we
consensus.
can kick it to
or-
them, and then if they recommend it, you get it back, just like you got this from me.
Okay. Do we have a consensus or do? Yes. Yes.
Good week.
Thank you. Next item, 10E 19/20-50, consideration/authorization for town manager to execute contingent agreement with the state of Lance Stewart to satisfy debt and purchase open space with easement.
So moved.
And easement.
Second.
So obviously, we've been discussing this for some time, and under this proposal, the DPW would pick up 4.51 acres that could be used for any public works activity, including if everyone decides and it's approved.
Possible relocation
potential,
of the transfer station. Possible.
Or future community center, or anything else.
Airport, whatever.
Airport, I don't think they have the acreage.
Maybe.
And then 7 acres of open space. There would be easements from Olson Farm Road to that, we'd actually have land that we could connect to Olson Farm Road to the open space, and an easement across that to the remainder parcel of the estate of Lance Stewart. They would give us easements from that land to Knollwood Drive and across their land to the Nathan Hale Forest, which connects through to Pocket Hill Road. So it basically connects Daly Road to Pocket Hill Road to Main Street. So it's a major open space intersection that gets people all the way from Main Street to the Nathan Hale Road without going to Daly Road, or down Pocket Hill Road. So it's
Not authorizing any greenway through this property. No bikeway. Doing that.
No, we're proposing walking trails.
Okay.
Scott Stewart is proposing clamshell trails.
He'll furnish the clamshells?
Yes, he would.
They're very
Shells.
expensive, cost a lot of clams.
It's like your family has a lot of muscles.
At least he's sharing. Don't want to be shellfish.
So, anyways, it provides lots of flexibility for the future. If you authorize this, we can make sure the probate court is agreeable to this and get a sales agreement that certainly can bring back to you before I execute, but I need to have kind of the authorization to proceed ahead and get everyone.
And could you just outline the steps after that would occur?
So the steps required, again, under, I'm saying this a lot tonight, under Connecticut General Statute 8-24, because we're acquiring land, and has to go through the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I'm just asking to tell the public.
Yeah, and I believe because we're acquiring real estate and using open space funds, that there would have to be a special town meeting. Which is what we've been doing, and I keep saying that to the attorneys, give me a detailed step, and what I get is, well, you know that, but I want them to confirm that. It's been a long, fruitful negotiation, actually, with a lot of need this.
Fruitful in the end, you mean?
Well, give and take. I think we have a better product than, you know, allowing us just demanding something. I think they raised some issues that were significant. We gained a better understanding of some of the uniqueness of this property from, got to get down into below the weeds. There's some major mushroom colonies there that are very extensive, that we don't realize what mushrooms are, but actually mushrooms can clean contaminants out of soils, and they're all connected. They're all one giant plant. You see these little sprouts, but it's all underground. So interesting things, and I think there's an opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about things and long-term creation of.
In the town interest too, this is property that's centrally located. It's on a sewer. It's got a lot of flexibility for future use. You know, one being potential treatment plant, but there are other options. You know that.
Wait, what?
Also,
treatment plant?
I mean. No.
Oh, transfer station.
Transfer station. I mean, yeah, transfer station.
Whoa.
Sorry, wrong thing there.
But, and I'll just to echo, originally when the Public Works Study Committee, they wanted 25 acres and we got 12. So we're tight. We are just tight there, and half of this land could also be for future public works. Just we don't have a good stockpile, and right now we stockpile some things off of South Street Extension. We get some of those things out of there. You know, if we lose that to a softball field or something like that, then we have no place to go. So the most efficient thing for us to store everything is close by. Just go grab one of those versus go drive 20 minutes down the road and get one of those. Long term, it also provides buffer to us. Right now, there aren't houses there. If 7 or 8 house subdivision went in there, which we could map out, we might get complaints about the noise of a public works garage. Right now, we don't. I've never gotten any complaints about it. But
I think it's important to note the value of the property the potential value to the town in the future, because I think we're paying slightly over market in some ways, but I think that, you know, we're guaranteeing, the reason why we're moving forward is because we guarantee the town has access and can, you know, be able to get that property. We have no guarantee, otherwise we would just go with, you know, be put up to bid, and we don't know what would happen either.
It would probably go to a foreclosure sale, and that goes to the highest bidder. And,
thanks for catching me on the treatment.
No, we've all spoke from time to time.
So we get our money back, and in this way, we're getting our money back from the planning zone cleanup and land, and then deciding to add to it by the uniqueness and the connectivity of the open spaces.
Open space deal.
I know it's taken a lot of work and a lot of time, and I appreciate it, John. Thank you.
Yeah, I echo that. Thank you for all that you've
gone
through to get to this step, anyway.
I guess we won't be able to have any more executive sessions.
Don't worry, there's more. Vote.
So, authorize the manager to execute the contingent agreement with the estate of Lance Stewart to satisfy debt and purchase
It
open
was
space.
already
We motioned and
motioned by
seconded.
John and Matt Jr.
Oh, good.
seconded.
So
No
then we might
further
as well vote.
discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 I have a question. and maybe I just spaced out, but item 8A1, did we talk about that?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
You didn't
I thought I
imagine
missed it.
Nope.
Truly saving that for you.
Yeah.
Why don't we do this item before you go
Yep,
back?
go ahead and make a motion.
No, I'm not making a motion. This
To
is
move it up,
11.
or is it- oh,
No,
it's
it's the next one.
okay.
yeah.
To 11, yeah.
11A is the request for establishment
Yeah.
of policy.
All right, so 11A, request for establishment of policy governing relations of Coventry law enforcement personnel. You have something to say?
Yeah, so, we get correspondence often that these things need further study and there's sense of like the steering committee to look at it. I have had some initial.
Take it. Yeah.
Had some initial discussions with our labor attorney.
Okay.
And he feels that some of our policies may address this already. And we don't know how successfully yet, frankly. And our town attorney is starting to look at other aspects of the law, whether we would even have the right to adopt this type of policy short of having a law. So clearly, we don't have good answers right now, so it needs further study, both on how well are we addressing this issue now under our current policies, and whether if we wish to do this, whether we would even be allowed to do this. So, or if so, under what conditions and processes. So I think both those things need to be looked at before we say yea or nay.
Well, then it would have to be structured in a certain way to meet the law.
So again, ordinance or policy, those are also questions that come into play.
Could we get more information, I know steering will, but could we also get information on the existing policies that
Sure.
related to this?
I think I asked for those
Steering did?
a while ago.
Did you?
Yeah.
See, you did a steering, you didn't do hair, right?
No, it wasn't steering.
Yeah, I can get you the police manuals.
Thank you.
Yeah, it wasn't on our intranet.
No.
Yes, Lisa?
John, have you already done inquiries to other towns as to whether they have a policy similar to what's being requested or an ordinance to close for that gap between 16 and 17-year-olds?
Yes, I asked the reporters to do that, so I've done research into that. This morning I said, why don't you ask other towns? Because I have not heard of this.
Okay, so that's not a good way to do it.
Why not?
Well,
Wait, heard of what? Sorry.
Other towns.
Other towns that
is that part of the
similar
same
ordinances
to
to
find out if
our
other towns have
regulations.
similar policy or ordinance?
I am not aware of that right now. So we can put our information request into CCM.
That just might be.
But it's
a
certainly an
helpful
area
way
of concern
to
and
not
should be
do
looked
it.
into.
Absolutely.
Right.
I just don't know. I would have assumed that their current policies would cover things like that, but maybe not.
So steering meets next week. We probably won't have enough information to discuss it.
I think we could start that discussion, but I
Okay,
think
we'll put
that
it on
steering's
the
going to raise
agenda.
more questions
Yeah.
like this.
We can review
absolutely,
the current
but we
policy.
They
can
may have more
start.
information they need before they can move forward too,
Yes.
and then make those requests
Okay,
and so
so
forth.
we'll have that on our
So I
steering.
think developing a plan on how to research this is part of the first steps.
But we thank whoever raised this issue in the audience.
Yep, we'll follow up on it.
Thank you.
All right.
Going back to 1A.
Well, while we're here, why don't we address Lisa Conant's 11B, and then we'll finish up with the thing I overlooked.
Round one, go back.
We would ask to have the
No,
Arts
this
Guild
was,
minutes
11B.
removed.
Yes,
A1.
Yeah, we're doing 11B first.
I just wanted this, just to highlight, thank you, John, actually, that is even better. Just highlight a couple of the things on the minutes that are announcements of public interest. They are going to have, this Friday, the 21st, a social event at Booth and Dimmick Library. It's going to be a screening of the movie Loving Vincent, about Vincent van Gogh. And that is free and open to the public, and it will be happening at 5 p.m. And there will be refreshments. Will be an opening of artwork in an exhibit at Millbrook Place on May 23rd. And Arts on Main is going to be celebrated on August 22nd this year.
Mark your calendar.
Mark your calendars.
So, just broader in terms of minutes. There are times where I see something in minutes that I just think I should share with the council. So I'm not going to always send you things, but if there's something that's like, oh, council, so it's just a judgment thing. So sometimes I'll do it here, sometimes I'll just email it out if it's like more pressing. Or this way it helps advertising when it's on the agenda.
Yeah.
The broader community.
Where people hear about it, maybe.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Yes, I appreciate that. All right, now as a council, we will meet with various town departments that are going to talk about budgets with us. And we had passed out who we've met with in the past. Is there anybody not on this list? We have police, library, Board of Education, Public Works, Fire, Parks and Rec, Human Services, and we've even met with the registrars of voters. Is there anyone you don't think we need to meet with, or anyone you'd additionally like us to meet with?
Where's the list? I don't think I got it.
The registrar is still.
It wasn't handed out to just Julie.
That was the prior one.
I was gonna say, I haven't
So I don't
seen that
know
list.
that we need.
It was last year's list.
Yeah, well, okay, so I saw it last year.
Well,
you
Laura
remember it
sent
clearly.
Yeah.
Laura sent it to Julie just so she'd be, you know,
Right, you use
so
it
she
as a
could
template
discuss
for-
it with
yeah,
you.
yeah, okay,
And
cool.
she just read it to you.
I would like to keep the registrars on.
Okay.
I
I
remember
second
you added
that.
last year, and I know that there's some questions.
Yep. Alrighty.
I have to apologize to the council, I'm going to be gone the week of 3/9.
Human services will include senior services, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
We may not have a director yet.
I know you might only get senior services because there's no one else.
All day Thursday, I'm doing interview panels just to add to my week. We only have 4 applicants that are I deem worthy to interview, so I have an interview panel on this Thursday.
So who's the interim? Is it you?
No, actually Brenda at the senior center is doing a lot of it, but they have a team approach. All 3 of them are doing it, and I'm stopping down frequently to say, okay?
Yeah.
And having more in-depth conversations when things arise to a level.
Julie? Do we want to think about having representatives from the fire services, because they've asked for a number of things to go along with the transition, and they're supposed to be giving us some priorities and some other things. I'm not saying we're going to do anything.
Yeah, they're on this list. Under yours.
Oh, yours is okay. I only got I thought Public Works was all by itself, sorry.
Did you say the Conservation Commission was coming to speak at some point as part of this?
No.
When you were going through capital and we were talking about open space, I thought you said conservation was going to come to talk about their needs.
I thought he meant, I know I heard him talk about the fire department. We'll be talking about what.
I'm sorry, maybe I said something in that was misconstrued, but it's not ringing a bell.
Shall I read the transcript? No.
It's possible. I've been misstating myself.
Well, I feel like it's a pretty complete list. I don't think there's any addition of people that I feel I need to hear from.
Just registrars
They're
as an
on there.
addition.
Yeah.
They're on the
They
list
were on
last
there
year.
once in the past, because it has been an issue.
So, just, there is going to be a Republican primary, so
Yes.
now
needlessly.
the schools have to be delegated to 2 parts, and each party will have to run their own primary, which may be an issue that, since somebody's been locked out of the system and hasn't been able to get into their system for 2 weeks,
Right.
somebody maybe want to engage that, because one party is not going to be helping the other party because they're doing their own. So they can't generate lists because they can't get into the system.
So they're not going to be able to get access, or they've been denied access? I don't know what you're
Is
saying.
it just that single computer, or is it
So, right,
a
the
login.
Republican Registrar of
They don't-
Voters
they-
chose not to update their password or something, and so
And
now
they're
they
locked
can't
out.
get into their system.
And-
It's a dual approval system, that's what I understand.
Is it the state website or the actual physical computer?
State.
Oh,
So-
Just clarifying.
They told us it was the computer, so.
Yeah, well, they don't get the difference. They want to call IT and we can't
They
help
do,
them.
they call me all the time and ask if I can reset their password for the state website.
We can't.
I don't.
We don't have
We
access.
don't administer that system.
Do not administer.
Intentionally call the right place.
They just had to set up
Secretary of State's
two-factor
You've got a lot of
authentication, right?
promise to make,
That's
but
all
not
that's
that one.
required.
But it's been 2 weeks.
Right, they didn't do it. So now they can't access what they need.
So the Secretary of State's office can't help them? Or they
If
have-
somebody calls them,
Oh, good.
but it has to be them.
Yeah, I would assume so.
There was one day that they couldn't get on because of our physical computers, because IT updated them to Windows 10. We gave them all individual logons instead of a communal shared logon
Mhm.
for security purposes.
That's the best
So that was
practice.
one day, but the state website's a different issue.
Just letting you know that I'm freaking out a little bit and, they answer to the parties, not to me. So I'm just cautioning you that
Well, they don't actually answer to us, they only answer to the Secretary
they
of
serve,
State, right?
they're nominated by you.
Yeah,
the parties.
that was true. 3 years ago, we nominated her.
And it's just,
Sometimes the conversation is helpful.
Uh,
Or not, maybe
and-
the conversation doesn't help.
and there may have already been. I'm not saying, I'm just letting you know that I have
There's a
trepidation
concern.
of preparation for this primary that I don't think they were thinking was going to happen. That is going to happen, and you have to have voter lists and everything else.
I will meet with the registrars and figure out what's going on.
Would you like to enter to executive session? Or you're agreeing on dates or just on who you're meeting with?
No.
We'll
I'll work
square,
out the dates
we'll
with
weigh the
John,
dates.
Laura, and
I would
who's-
say don't make the board the 11th. That would probably
Right.
be a good idea.
Okay.
So the 11th,
Well, it's last year's date, so it's probably not going to be the 11th anyway. But not that week.
That week it's the 9th, Monday. So
So
it'll be on Monday the 9th.
meeting with the board has not been set as a date?
No.
I think we have, actually.
I thought it was the 16th of March,
Yes.
but I don't know where that came from.
But
Yes, they
yes.
wanted it after the public hearing.
They wanted after public hearing.
Okay, so Monday, the 16th, the BOE. And that is going to be our council meeting, right?
Yep.
Correct. Okay.
Now, we'll try to hold the council meetings a little lighter than usual, so we may try to get somebody else there.
Oh, so we're not going to do minutes? No, I'm just kidding.
It's their minutes, right?
No, it's our council minutes.
We're getting quicker.
No, actually, they were great this
Yeah.
week, I thought.
So we'll get things arranged to get people. I know there's one date that Margaret Hahn, the librarian, couldn't make it, so we'll try to schedule the library. Yes.
So,
Ready to do executive session?
Or we could do the library the same
I
way we did the
thought,
building
that
committee.
was my thought. Because
Because
she's
they'll be there,
available
they'll be there
and
anyway.
everybody will be there, so.
I would say we do the library the same, the first meeting in March.
Do we get our budget prior to
That
that
night.
or that night?
It might be ready the week before if people want to stop by and pick them up from the town hall. during
Yeah,
town hall
that's the
hours,
deadline
but
for us.
Okay.
Definitely have those on the tables March 2nd.
All right, so when you do have them
I'll
ready,
email them
maybe you
to
could
people,
email us
yeah.
if we want to come get
But
it.
right now, we're at the finishing up the manager stage and the department head stage information, and then next week to go through and make my adjustments. And Amanda's doing the detailed sheets in the middle. But we couldn't do too much more to the Board of Ed. They adopted their budget, which may be done now.
Anybody have? Finance met tonight, they're still talking about it.
Did they have a special meeting
They're
to
supposed to have a
adopt their
special
budget?
meeting while we're meeting.
They may have finalized it now. Yeah.
So tomorrow I may get the number that we can start pulling together with a full picture. Until we get that, there's not a lot.
You ready?
I move that the town council enter into executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 1206D, discussion of the selection of a, we're still doing this? No, selection of a site or the lease, sale, or purchase of real estate by a political subdivision of the state, when publicity regarding such a site, lease, sale, purchase, or construction would cause a likelihood of an increased price until such time as all the property has been acquired or all proceedings or transactions concerning same have been terminated or abandoned, with the following people in attendance: the 6 members present of the town council, John Assessor and Amanda Backhouse.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I move that the town council enter executive session pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 1206E, discussion of any matter which would result in the disclosure of public records or the information therein contained described in subsection B of section 1210, with the following people in attendance: 6 members present of the town council, John Assessor and Amanda Backhouse.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.